Chapter 1676. Tang Zheng returned from exploring the barbarian land again. From afar he saw a group of people blocking the place where his people lived. The noise was endless. Although the barbarian land was desolate, the ground was not suitable for building houses. Therefore the righteous faction built their houses under the barbarian land, under the layers of hard rocks. The barbarian land seemed to have become a new city, exuding vitality. It was completely different from the desolation of the barbarian land. It was a different scene. Get out of the barbarian land. Get out of the barbarian land. A clamor of curses rang out incessantly. Tang Zheng's pupils shrank. He did not understand what was going on. He passed through the crowd and shouted, "Excuse me, what's going on?" Seeing that it was him, the righteous faction looked at him with indescribable disdain and disgust. When he finally came to the door of his house, he found that his people had been surrounded by the righteous faction. They all looked angry. "What's going on?" Tang Zheng asked in a low voice. Yi Dingdang could not hold back the anger in her heart. Like a machine gun, she said quickly, "These people are making trouble for no reason. They want to drive us away. They don't know what's good for them." The great ancestor agreed. He said angrily, "We are here to help them, but they want to drive us away. This is ridiculous. We are the righteous faction. How can we live with a group of people with bad morals like you? We naturally want to drive you away." The righteous faction said solemnly. They did not care about the anger of the righteous faction. Tang Zheng frowned and looked at the righteous faction people curiously. Suddenly, he saw Wild Dog in the crowd trying to squeeze forward. He shouted, "Wild Dog, what's going on?" Wild Dog's face was red. He squeezed through the crowd and said angrily, This, he stammered, as if he had something to say. Tang Zheng scolded, "What's there to be afraid of?" Wild Dog took a deep breath and finally gathered his courage. He said, "They said that Tian Chanzi is a traitor of Kingsaman. He is also an enemy of the righteous faction. Kingsaman is a famous righteous faction. We can't be with such a traitor." "What?" Tang Zheng exclaimed in surprise. This group of people had actually come for Tian Chanzi, and because of Tian Chanzi, they had vented their anger on them. A reputable sect? How arrogant. Tian Chanzi and Kingsaman's past grievances haven't been clarified yet, and you're already vowing to drive him away. You even want to drive us away. How preposterous. Tang Zheng's tone was heavy. As soon as his voice fell, it was like a huge rock pressing down on their hearts. Wild Dog hurriedly explained, "That's what they think. I don't think so. I also think that it's nonsense. Jumping to conclusions before things are clear is not what a strict righteous path would do. Wild Dog, who do you think you are? You don't have the right to speak in this matter." Someone snorted, not putting the Wild Dog in his eyes at all. The Wild Dog's face turned redder and redder. He raised his head and said, "I am also a member of the righteous path. Why can't I speak?" "Which sect are you from? You're just a lonely soul." The opposing soldier did not give up and continued to argue. Wild Dog was speechless. This was his weakness, and also the eternal pain in his heart. He had lived for so many years, and it was not easy for him to cultivate to his current level, but he was a rootless duckweed, without any sect or sect. What's so great about being a sect? Since ancient times, how many sects have been destroyed, drowned in the long river of history? A sect is not worth mentioning. Tang Zheng retorted. The righteous path was stunned. These words were not a small blow. Everyone looked at Tang Zheng more and more, their original thoughts becoming more and more firm. "You're indeed jackals of the same lair as that traitor Tian Chanzi. You actually dare to boast so shamelessly." Someone said angrily, "This kind of person can't be left in the Manhuang. He's a stain on our righteous path." "Yes, get out of the Manhuang. Get out of the Manhuang." The shouts were deafening, and the crowd was furious. Tang Zheng never thought that things would turn out like this. He originally thought that the two sides would be able to merge in a short time, but now they were at each other's throats. Why did all this happen? "Shut up." Tang Zheng looked at the agitated crowd and finally could not hold back his anger. He roared, and the sound wave was like a shock wave, spreading to every righteous path. The righteous path people felt like their chests had been hammered, and the rest of their words were stuck in their throats. They could not say anything. "I'll leave, they don't have to leave." In complete silence, a voice quietly sounded out. Heaven Monk walked out from behind the crowd with a lonely expression and a look of guilt on his face. "No." Tangjung stared at Tian Chanzi. "None of us will leave." After saying that, he turned his gaze, as if a sharp knife light fell on the righteous path. Looking at the angry crowd, he gradually saw some clues. Why would the righteous path have such a huge conflict? Was it only because of Tian Chanzi? Why would the righteous path be so united? Was there no one organizing or fanning the flames in the dark? There was definitely something fishy going on. Tangjung was not a 3-year-old child and had experienced too many schemes. When he calmed down, he immediately discovered that there was something unusual about it. Then who was fanning the flames in the dark? Names flashed through Tangjung's mind, and finally, it settled on one name: Baimei Daoist. He coldly snorted in his heart and said to himself, "Baimei Daoist, I haven't had the time to settle the score with you, but you've already started the war and pointed the spearhead at me." In fact, when he arrived at the Manhuang, he already had thoughts of making a move on Baimei Daoist. But Baimei Daoist's identity was special, and he was the leader of the righteous path. Without full confidence and concrete evidence, there was no way to make a move on him. In other words, even if he really made a move on Baimei Daoist, it would arouse the resentment and conflict of the righteous path. This was not something that Tangjung wanted to see. In order to deal with Hao Tianwang and take back Sky Beyond Sky, Tangjung had to unite the righteous path. There would be a time when he would need the righteous path in the future. Now that he had offended all the righteous path, this would not do. This strategy of sowing discord had been perfected, but how could Tangjung let Baimei Daoist's evil plan succeed? His gaze swept through the crowd, but he did not find Baimei Daoist's figure. Obviously, he had a guilty conscience and did not dare to come to the scene. When the righteous path heard Tangjung's resolute words, they were very emotional. They looked at each other. Although they were frightened of Tangjung's terrifying strength, in the end, they were all united. Everyone's emotions accumulated together and erupted at the same time, as if they were not afraid of Tangjung at all. "Get out of the Manhuang! Get out of the Manhuang!" One after another, angry roars drowned out the crowd. Chapter 1677. Angry roars resounded in everyone's ears. Each and every one of the righteous path disciples had a sinister expression, as if they were about to gang up and attack. "Shut up!" A roar flew out from Tian Chanzi's mouth, like a shockwave, immediately suppressing all the other voices. Tian Chanzi raised his head, staring at the crowd in all directions, and said, "I will leave." Tangjung shouted, "No one needs to leave. Once I find the mastermind, this crisis will naturally be easily solved." "Where is the mastermind behind the scenes?" "Yes, that's nonsense." The crowd was enraged, glaring at him. Tangjung did not care so much, directly walking out of the crowd, coldly saying, "If you don't believe me, then I will find the mastermind. Seeing is believing." Everywhere he passed, the crowd automatically parted, revealing a path. This was not the righteous path voluntarily letting him pass, but because of a powerful force, they had no choice but to move outwards. Even though the white eyebrows Taoist did not personally come, he was remotely controlling everything. This group of righteous Tao people had his trusted aides, and seeing that Tangjung was about to break out, they swore to find the mastermind behind the scenes. This group of people had a guilty conscience, guessing that Tangjung was definitely aiming his spear at Baimei Daoist. Moreover, Tangjung's direction was also Baimei Daoist's residence. How could they let him rush there? Thus, this group of people fanned the flames and roared, "Quickly stop him! Wildlands is the territory of the Righteous Path Alliance. How can we allow an outsider to do as he pleases?" Under the temptation, there really were people who stood out. Even though Tangjung's strength was strong, but there were so many Righteous Path disciples, they still had enough confidence. "Stop!" Several people roared at Tangjung. Tangjung turned a deaf ear to them. Several people's expression turned cold, revealing a trace of killing intent. So. Pairs of hands attacked Tangjung, extremely fierce. Tangjung did not even look, lightly stretching out a finger, pointing towards the void, a wave of energy fluctuating. Bang bang bang. Their attacks collapsed, and they were sent flying like cannonballs. He actually dared to attack. This scene enraged even more people, and their gazes towards Tangzheng were filled with fury. How can we, the righteous path, allow others to humiliate us at our doorstep? The shout ignited the crowd, and all kinds of magical equipment attacked Tangzheng at the same time. When the old ancestor and the others saw this, they turned pale with fright. Just as they were about to rush over to help, they were stopped by Xiaobai. Xiaobai looked at the overbearing righteous faction mockingly and said, "Do they think that having more people means victory? Haha, you think you can bully master with numbers? Wishful thinking." The others were suddenly enlightened. They were worried about Tangzheng. In fact, it was completely unnecessary. The 7th grade of the Mahayana realm was not a joke. Reality proved that Xiaobai had a unique vision. When the multicolored magic weapon arrived in front of Tangzheng, a black hole suddenly appeared. Whoosh! A strong wind blew. All the magic weapons were enveloped by the terrifying suction force of the black hole. Disappear! With a shout, the magic weapons flew into the black hole, disappearing without a trace. At the same time, there was a lot of pure energy in the heaven realm. These magic weapons were completely turned into energy, replenishing the heaven realm. The righteous faction were shocked. Each and every one of them were frightened and unable to calm down. They did not understand what was going on. They had actually lost contact with their magic weapons. They looked at each other, obviously in the same situation. There was only one explanation for all of this. The magic weapons were destroyed. But the key was that so many magic weapons were destroyed with a wave of his hand. This was too terrifying, unheard of. The black hole disappeared. Otherwise, these righteous faction cultivators would also be sucked in. Tangzheng looked at the righteous faction indifferently. Wherever his eyes passed, the righteous faction cultivators trembled and subconsciously retreated. "Where are our magic weapons?" someone asked with trepidation. "Destroyed," Tangzheng said indifferently. Although they had already guessed this, but when they heard Tangzheng say it personally, they were all devastated, their faces ashen. Their magic weapons were equivalent to their second life, and were companions that had accompanied them for many years. It was a means to protect their lives. But it was destroyed so easily, so one could imagine how he felt. All destroyed. Someone did not give up and asked. Of course. These two simple words completely cut off everyone's thoughts. "My magic weapons." Some people cried, their hearts aching. "I spent a lot of money to buy them. What's mine is mine. I worked so hard to get it." Magic weapons were treasures in high demand, especially those that were satisfactory were even rarer. That was why this group of righteous faction cultivators were like this. The corner of Tangzheng's mouth hooked up into a faint smile. He did not destroy these people's magical equipment on a whim, but with a deeper meaning. He had just arrived and had yet to establish his power, so the righteous faction did not have much fear of him. Since they wanted to chase him away, didn't they just happen to bump into his blade? Then he would take this opportunity to use these people to establish his power and intimidate them. Pairs of red eyes stared fiercely at Tangzheng, as if they wanted to swallow him alive. "Compensate me for my magic weapons." "Yes, compensate me for my magic weapons," Tangzheng disdainfully said. "It's just a few magic weapons." "Just a few magic weapons? That's dozens of magic weapons. Do you know how hard it is to obtain a magic weapon? Do you know how many materials are needed to refine it?" In the outland heavens, there were plenty of treasures. However, to the righteous path, they were struggling to survive. It was already difficult for them to survive, so how could they have the time and energy to search for treasures to refine treasures? So for the righteous faction, magic weapons were very precious. Tangzheng guessed this point, but still casually said, "I can refine countless magic weapons, so to me, these few magic weapons are not worth mentioning." "You know how to refine weapons?" Everyone was immediately attracted by these words, sucking in a breath of cold air, half believing and half doubting him. "It's just refining weapons, what's so difficult about it?" Tangzheng calmly said. The more he was like this, the more shocked the righteous faction cultivators were. They looked at each other, not knowing what to do. Since you know how to refine weapons, then hurry up and refine a magic weapon and compensate us. Someone aggressively said. The others quickly agreed. That's right, hurry up and refine a magic weapon and compensate us. Tang Zheng lightly smiled and said, You can't wait to chase us away, and you want me to refine a magic weapon for you. Do you think that's possible? This one sentence was a checkmate, causing the righteous faction cultivators to look at each other, not knowing what to do. When Bai Mei Daoist's trusted aide saw this, he knew that if this continued, then Bai Mei Daoist's plan would be ruined, so he loudly shouted, Don't listen to his nonsense, refining weapons is not that easy. He destroyed my magic weapon, and I cannot exist under the same sky with him. At most we will fight. The righteous faction, how can we let him play around? So. Chapter 1678. One by one, the righteous disciples charged towards Tang Zheng without any regard for their own safety. Shua. The hidden profound sword flew out, floating in front of Tang Zheng, emitting a sharp sword light. That extremely simple saint rune lit up with a dazzling light, attracting everyone's attention. The hidden profound sword's aura was too strong, the sword humming unceasingly, as if the hidden profound sword was thirsting for blood, causing people's hair to stand on end. Saint inscriptions. Someone who was knowledgeable immediately recognized the saint inscriptions and exclaimed, That's a saint tool. Cries of surprise rang out from all directions. Saint tools were something that the righteous disciples could only hope to encounter by chance. Even a heaven-grade magic treasure would be fought over, not to mention a saint tool. Everyone was very clear on the power of a saint tool, so when they saw the hidden profound sword aimed at them, they were all stunned. Their footsteps came to an abrupt halt, as if they had suddenly braked, panicking as they stopped in front of Tang Zheng. Even those trusted followers of Bai Mei Daoist did not dare to risk their lives. They subconsciously retreated, not daring to charge forward. Tang Zheng's lips curled in a mocking smile. This group of righteous disciples were not unafraid of death, but in front of a saint tool, they were all scared stiff. Clearly, the saint tool's reputation was even greater than his own Tang Zheng's. He walked forward step by step, and the righteous disciples retreated step by step. Both sides moved towards Bai Mei Daoist's residence. Xiao Bai looked as if he was watching a good show. He winked at the others, saying, Everyone, let's go watch a good show. Xiao Bai was an intelligent person. He had also seen Bai Mei Daoist's style of doing things. It was naturally not difficult to guess that all of this was caused by Bai Mei Daoist fanning the flames. Bai Mei Daoist was so daring, Xiao Bai wanted to see what would happen to him in the end. The others were also in high spirits, except for Tian Chanzi, who seemed to be unwilling to go. Yi Dingdang had a fiery temper. How could she bear to see Tian Chanzi act coy? She grabbed him and said, Tian Chanzi, are you still a man? If you are a man, you should face it boldly. Isn't it just stealing the sect leader's woman? So what? Don't you think it's amazing? I'm not poaching anyone. Tian Chanzi blurted out. You didn't steal her? You couldn't have abducted the sect leader's new wife, right? Isn't this considered stealing? Yi Dingdang asked curiously. We're in love with each other. The sect leader is the one who came in between us, Tian Chanzi said faintly. Yi Dingdang's eyes lit up. It was as if she had discovered a new continent. There were so many twists and turns in this matter. This was a big piece of gossip. Then hurry up and tell me what's going on. She impatiently asked. Tian Chanzi froze for a moment, then immediately closed his mouth. Yi Dingdang glared at him with dissatisfaction. Helpless, she could only grab his sleeve and chase after Tang Zheng, not giving Tian Chanzi a chance to slip away. Everything was silent. Only the sound of footsteps could be heard. The righteous faction retreated. Tang Zheng advanced. Between the two was the hidden Xian sword floating in the air. During this time, Bai Mei Daoist's trusted aides fanned the flames a few times, but to no avail. It seemed that the other righteous faction members had also calmed down. Although the righteous faction members were not afraid of death, but that did not mean they did not cherish their own lives. Obviously, Tang Zheng was going after Bai Mei Daoist. Bai Mei Daoist was the leader of the righteous faction. This kind of matter should be handled by him. But he was hiding in the back. What a scandal! As a result, Many people in the righteous faction gradually had their own thoughts. Bai Mei Daoist hid in his own house, surrounded by his trusted aides. He could control the righteous faction and sit on the throne of the alliance leader. Naturally, he had a group of trusted aides, and there were quite a few of them. Alliance leader, don't worry. This group of people will definitely be expelled. We have been brewing for so long. How can they withstand the anger of so many people? Seeing Bai Mei Daoist pacing back and forth with an uneasy expression, his trusted aide hurriedly comforted him. Bai Mei Daoist did not reply, but his heart was heavy. He was not completely confident. After all, he had fought with Tang Zheng before, and knew how powerful he was. If Bai Mei Daoist knew about the situation of the battle in Suicide Valley, perhaps he would not have been so reckless and used the strategy of sowing discord. He still underestimated Tang Zheng. He thought that with the power of the righteous faction, with Tian Chanzi as the breakthrough point, they could definitely force these people to leave the savage wasteland. Suddenly, Tian Chanzi turned his head and looked outside. A wave of heavy footsteps approached from afar. The other trusted aides also turned their heads to look, all of them revealing suspicious expressions. Go out and take a look. Bai Mei Daoist ordered. One of his trusted aides hurriedly went out. After a while he staggered back in panic and said, Alliance leader, something big has happened. What's the matter? Why are you so flustered? Tang Zheng is here. What? Bai Mei Daoist suddenly stopped in his tracks and stared straight at the door, as if he wanted to see through the wall. Bai Mei Daoist, are you hiding inside like a turtle? Hurry up and come out. Before Bai Mei Daoist could think of a countermeasure, Tang Zheng's voice had already floated in. These straightforward words immediately made Bai Mei Daoist feel as if he was sitting on pins and needles, not knowing what to do. But there was one thing, he could not hide in the house forever. Otherwise, his prestige as the alliance leader would be gone. Daoist's white eyebrows didn't need to look to know that pairs of eyes were uniformly looking at his residence. His every move fell into the eyes of all the people. He went from being active to being passive. This kind of feeling was really unpleasant. Seeing that his trusted aides were all looking at him, waiting for him to make a decision, Bai Mei Daoist frowned. In the end, he gritted his teeth and walked out with large strides. Bang! The door was pushed open, and the pairs of eyes became even hotter, completely focused on Bai Mei Daoist. Under the gazes of tens of thousands of people, Bai Mei Daoist calmly swept his gaze over the crowd and asked the obvious. What's wrong with all of you? Alliance leader, this group of outsiders is in cahoots with traitors. We can't take them in, and want them to get out of the wildlands. One of the trusted aides in the crowd cleverly replied. I see. Bai Mei Daoist pretended to suddenly understand, as if this was the first time he had heard such words and understood this matter. Tang Zheng looked at Bai Mei Daoist's performance with a fake smile. If he had not guessed the ins and outs of the situation, he might have been deceived by Bai Mei Daoist's superb acting. The white-brow Daoist priest looked at Tang Zheng from afar, and let out a long sigh. He pretended to be in a difficult position and said, Since this is a joint decision, then as the alliance leader, I can only support it. So everyone, the savage land does not welcome you, please leave. Ha ha ha. Have you really made up your mind? Tang Zheng laughed. Bai Mei Daoist hesitated for a moment, and then nodded. This is everyone's decision. It is not something that I can influence alone. I'm afraid this is your decision alone, and then you fan the flames and lead others to it. Tang Zheng hit the nail on the head and said bluntly. These words pierced through Bai Mei Daoist's hypocritical face. Bai Mei Daoist's face stiffened. Chapter 1679. As soon as Tang Zheng finished speaking, Bai Mei Daoist's face turned pale. Although he tried his best to hide it, he was still caught by Tang Zheng. Humph, you have a guilty conscience. Tang Zheng despised him. The others did not understand and looked at the two of them blankly. Bai Mei Daoist immediately calmed himself down, his face darkened, and pretended to be heartbroken. Tang Zheng, I have no enmity with you in the past. Why do you have to slander me like this? Our righteous path not only kindly took you in and provided you with a place to stay, but you repay kindness with enmity. Tang Zheng was not surprised by Bai Mei Daoist's reaction, as his reaction was not slow. After all, the other party was the righteous alliance leader, And to be able to sit on this throne, he was definitely not an ordinary person. The corner of Tang Zheng's mouth curled up as he sneered in ridicule, and said straightforwardly, "Repay kindness with enmity? He, this big hat is really skillful. Then let me ask you, where did your son go? Life risking." The others all turned their heads to look, but did not find any trace of life risking. Only then did they realize that it had been a while since they had seen life risking. If not for Tang Zheng deliberately reminding them, they would not have noticed this. The corner of Bai Mei Daoist's mouth twitched a few times, and his heart turned cold. He did not know about the Battle of Suicide Valley, so he naturally did not know how far the plan of risking his life had progressed. Hearing Tang Zheng take the initiative to mention risking his life, Bai Mei Daoist realized that he had probably overlooked a serious problem. The other party had definitely seen risking his life, or knew his whereabouts. This was troublesome. Didn't this mean that his scheme had been exposed? Bai Mei Daoist was unable to believe this, but relying on his aura that had been cultivated for many years, he did not immediately panic. His mind raced, and he immediately said calmly, "We have been living in seclusion in Suicide Valley for so long, and know nothing about the outside world. In order to avoid being blinded, I sent my son to risk his life to investigate the situation outside. He is risking his life for the sake of the righteous path. Is there a problem with that?" A few of his trusted aides cleverly followed up, pretending to be admiring as they said, "The Alliance Master is so far-sighted that he actually sent his own son to investigate. This selfless spirit is unparalleled. We admire him to the extreme." Bai Mei Daoist modestly cupped his hands and said, "This is what I should do as the Alliance leader. If my son doesn't go into the tiger's den, should I let others go into the tiger's den? As the leader of the Righteous Alliance, I, Bai Mei Daoist, would never do such a despicable thing." Once these words were said, there was a lot of discussion, gaining the good impression of many righteous faction members. Many people praised Bai Mei Daoist for his selflessness. Tang Zheng faintly sighed and said, "A person who is despicable is invincible." This sentence is really not wrong. Schemes and machinations can actually make you speak in such a dignified manner, making people feel reverence in their hearts. Your martial arts are truly admirable, admirable." This was obviously sarcastic, even a fool could tell. Bai Mei Daoist's expression became even uglier, and he said in a deep voice, "I treated you guys well, but you guys actually slandered me like this. Then why did your son risk his life to stand together with Hao Tianwang and King Wuling? If it wasn't for him informing us, how could our secret stronghold in the Suicide Valley have been discovered by Hao Tianwang and attacked by him?" Tang Zheng questioned. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone was shocked. Everyone could hear a different kind of deep meaning from these words. Bai Mei Daoist was surprised that Tang Zheng actually saw him risk his life and Hao Tianwang together. How was he going to explain this? However, some people heard another meaning, and that was that they had actually been hiding in the Suicide Valley the entire time. Everyone was no stranger to the Suicide Valley. It was a place even more dangerous than the Savage Land. No one would take the risk and step into the Suicide Valley. However, there were actually people hidden inside. In addition, there were also people who noticed that Hao Tianwang had led his troops to attack the Suicide Valley. This was especially frightening. Hao Tianwang had led his troops to attack. How terrifying was that? This group of people had actually escaped unscathed, and even reached the Savage Land. Then how did they do it? Just how strong were they to be able to escape from Hao Tianwang's hands? In the end, some people started to worry. Since they had escaped from Hao Tianwang, wouldn't Hao Tianwang also chase them to the Savage Land? Wouldn't they be in danger as well? All of them looked at each other in dismay, each with their own thoughts. A commotion broke out in the crowd, and the noise was incessant. Tang Zheng looked at Bai Mei Daoist with interest and asked, "How do you explain this?" This voice quickly suppressed the voices of the others. Immediately, there was complete silence as pairs of eyes stared at Bai Mei Daoist. Some people couldn't help but believe in Tang Zheng's words. Bai Mei Daoist saw this and knew that he was in great danger. Thus he took a deep breath and defended himself. "Venomous slander. You said that you saw the sacrifice of life, so you saw it? You want to use this matter to slander me? Dream on." Ask the other righteous path people if they agree or not. Many of his trusted aides replied, no. If he dares to slander the alliance leader, that is slandering the entire righteous path alliance. This kind of person should be killed by everyone. Yes, everyone can't be fooled by his schemes. The trusted aides stirred up the emotions of the other righteous path people, and many of them followed suit. They looked at Tang Zheng with unkind gazes. However, Tang Zheng was not worried and said, you want evidence, right? There will definitely be evidence. If you have no proof, then take out the evidence. Bai Mei Daoist felt weak in his heart, but he still put on a strong front and said fiercely, evidence? Tang Zheng naturally didn't have any. He pondered for a moment and said, give me a bit more time, the evidence will naturally be presented in front of everyone. Bai Mei Daoist was deeply afraid that he would really take out some evidence. Hearing these words, Bai Mei Daoist's heart relaxed, and he laughed in disdain. Ha ha ha, so there is no evidence at all. You are just spouting nonsense. This kind of person is not welcomed by the righteous path. Since you don't insist on leaving, then we can only make you scram. After pausing for a moment, Bai Mei Daoist slowly flew up and floated in the air. His voice was like a large bell, filled with killing intent as he said, as the alliance leader of the righteous path, I order all the righteous path people to expel this person with ulterior motives and his companions. Make them scram out of Man Huang. Man Huang definitely cannot allow this kind of disloyal and ungrateful person to remain in Man Huang. Bai Mei Daoist's words were powerful and resonant, playing the role of a righteous envoy. Under the encouragement of his trusted aides, many of the righteous path people were shaken. Although there were some who doubted Bai Mei Daoist, but after all, one was a person who had only known each other for a short period of time, while the other was someone who knew each other very well. Moreover, he was the alliance leader chosen by all the righteous path people, so it went without saying which side they would stand on. Faced with the ultimate choice, the righteous path people made their own choice. Pairs of eyes were fixed on Tang Zheng's face. Anger and killing intent gradually surged in their eyes. Tang Zheng had become the target of public criticism. To read the latest novel, please visit Chapter 1680. The good faction had a large number of people. Almost all of them had gathered here. Other than the people who had their treasures destroyed by Tang Zheng, there were others who had rushed over after hearing the news. This group of people stared at Tang Zheng covetously, their auras surging. Xiao Bai and the others could no longer sit idly by. They quickly gathered behind Tang Zheng, becoming his solid backing, facing the good faction without fear. Xiao Bai looked at the good faction in ridicule. Raising his voice, he said, bullying us with numbers? My master is not alone. If you want to bully him, you have to ask for our permission first. Yi Dingdang and the others responded, yes, you have to ask for our permission first. Although they had fewer people, their aura was not weak at all. In fact, they were faintly pressuring the good faction. Kill! The good faction was not to be trifled with. They finally burst out with a heaven-shaking roar. A group of people charging out. Charge! Xiao Bai gave the order. Taking the lead, he rushed to the front. The others followed his footsteps, charging at the enemy as fast as lightning. The two forces charged at each other without regard for their own safety. The hard rocks of the wildlands shook as if there was an earthquake. Boom! Both sides finally clashed. The treasures were the first to attack, fighting fiercely, their auras fluctuating like the wind and clouds changing color. Boom boom boom. The mountains shook. Huge rocks fell from above. This place that the good faction had worked so hard to open up seemed to be in danger of collapsing. Only two people did not move. One was Tang Zheng, the other was Bai Mei Daoist. As if they were not involved, they did not move in between the two torrents. However, the two pairs of eyes looked at each other across the air, as if there was a strong attractive force, firmly attracting these two pairs of eyes. Bai Mei Daoist was also at the Grand Ascension stage. During his battle with Tang Zheng, Bai Mei Daoist was only at the second stage of the Grand Ascension stage, and after that incident, he had expended many precious materials to finally break through his shackles and reach the third stage of the Grand Ascension stage. The white eyebrows Daoist was very pleased with his breakthrough. One had to know that this was almost impossible, but he had done it. Not only that, but his Dharma treasure had also been upgraded. In the past, his horsetail whisk was also a saint artifact, but it had just reached the saint artifact grade. The saint inscriptions on it were messy, and did not have a simple sense of beauty. In the fierce battle with Tang Zheng, the horsetail whisk had been greatly damaged. Fortunately, Bai Mei Daoist was also good at refining tools, so he had spent a lot of effort and collected the materials with great difficulty. Because of his breakthrough in cultivation, he had forged a new horsetail whisk. The quality of the horsetail whisk had also been upgraded. The saint inscriptions on it were no longer messy and had been simplified by a lot. The biggest change was that the whisk was no longer white, but blood red, which was very dazzling. A faint smell of blood drifted out from the horsetail whisk. Therefore, after Bai Mei Daoist could not withstand the pressure exerted by Tang Zheng's eyes, the blood-red horsetail whisk appeared in his hand with a swish. Tang Zheng stared at the horsetail whisk, and his pupils shrank slightly as he said meaningfully, "Your horsetail whisk contains too much of the smell of blood. I'm afraid it's not an honorable refining method." Tang Zheng was a master refiner, so he naturally saw the clues at a glance. His voice was not loud, but it accurately entered Bai Mei Daoist's ears. This sentence was particularly harsh, and he could not help but frown. Chasing the wind and moon. Bai Mei Daoist roared, and a dazzling blood-red light shot out from the horsetail whisk. In the blink of an eye, it flew in front of Tang Zheng, and its momentum was particularly fierce. Tang Zheng had experienced this move before. Obviously, it was more powerful than last time, but it was less of a threat to Tang Zheng. Bai Mei Daoist's cultivation had increased by 1 level, but Tang Zheng's cultivation had increased by 3 levels compared to last time. The difference in strength was like heaven and earth. Buzz. The hidden profound sword hummed softly, and the sword light intercepted the blood-red light. A gust of wind fiercely hit the hidden profound sword, but it was immediately shattered by the sharp hidden profound sword. The hidden profound sword flew out from Tang Zheng's hand and stabbed straight at Bai Mei Daoist, subduing the dragon and tiger. Erased the universe. The horsetail whisk changed attacking moves, and the power suddenly increased. However, Tang Zheng was still very calm, because he had experienced all of these moves before and knew them very well. Therefore, the mysterious hidden sword shot out 2 sword lights in the air, easily breaking through the 2 attacks of the white eyebrows Daoist. Bai Mei Daoist's face turned pale. He could not see through Tang Zheng's cultivation, so he did not know the difference between the two. He thought that after his strength increased he would not be much weaker than Tang Zheng. However, through these 2 moves, he finally realized that he must have a new attacking move to maybe beat Tang Zheng. He gritted his teeth and smiled coldly. "Then I'll let you have a taste of my new move. Blood over the world." Puff. The white eyebrows Daoist priest spat out a mouthful of blood onto the horsetail whisk. The blood-red light of the horsetail whisk shone brightly, and an overwhelming smell of blood surged out, like the changing dark clouds in the sky. The smell of blood kept rolling, covering the horsetail whisk. Outsiders could not see it, but the dust of the horsetail whisk was rolling in the smell of blood, stirring up the aura of this space, which made it like a bloody cloud, and attacked Tang Zheng fiercely. Tang Zheng disdainfully curled his lips and said, "Not worth mentioning." The hidden profound sword turned into 2, then 4, and finally thousands of them, and shot into the bloody cloud. Puff, 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 puff. A series of cracking sounds rang out incessantly. Finally, with a boom, the blood-red cloud exploded. Broken strands of dust drifted down like catkins from a willow tree. Bai Mei Daoist spat out another mouthful of blood, and his face became extremely pale. The horsetail whisk returned to his hand, but half of the dust was broken. Tang Zheng walked step by step toward Bai Mei Daoist, and Bai Mei Daoist retreated in panic. In the end, he leaned against the wall and retired from the army. The hidden profound sword approached step by step, and the sharp sword light shone on Bai Mei Daoist's face. Bai Mei Daoist's pale face became more and more clear. Bai Mei Daoist was defeated. Although it was only a short time, he was defeated, and thoroughly defeated, even more than last time. He could not understand why he was defeated so miserably, even though his cultivation had increased. He clenched his teeth, and the voice of hatred squeezed out from between his teeth. He asked, Why are you so powerful? Tang Zheng smiled faintly. You are improving and so am I. Moreover, the speed of my improvement is far from what you can compare to. This sentence was like a heavy hammer, fiercely pounding on his chest. He choked a mouthful of blood in his throat, and almost died. But he did not give up. His eyes emitted a vicious light, and the horsetail whisk was thrust into the ground, as if cutting tofu, easily inserted into the hard rock ground. Bai Mei Daoist shouted himself hoarse, as if using all the strength in his body, and roared, Big Dipper 6 Directions Formation. Bang! 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 A series of loud noises came from the room behind him. To read the latest novel, please visit the website. Chapter 1681. With a loud sound, several tall figures broke through the wall and appeared in front of everyone. Tang Zheng immediately locked onto these people and revealed an astonished expression. This was because he saw a problem with this group of people. These people actually had no vitality, as if they were walking corpses. This made Tang Zheng involuntarily recall the puppet technique. Back then, Huang Xiang was also like this. Puppets? Tang Zheng said in a deep voice, not understanding Bai Mei Daoist's plan. Hearing the word puppets, Bai Mei Daoist was not surprised. He sternly stared at Tang Zheng and growled, Big Dipper 6 Directions Formation. Tang Zheng's brows jumped. He had seen the power of this formation before. Bai Mei Daoist was using the same trick again. Did he think that the Big Dipper 6 Directions Formation could defeat him? The puppets were already standing in a special position. They all raised their hands and rays of light shot out from their hands, gathering together in midair. An aura of death permeated the air, instantly enveloping this space. Tang Zheng's expression became serious. Bai Mei Daoist, as the Righteous Alliance leader, you keep saying that you adhere to the Righteous Path's principles, but does your Big Dipper 6 Directions Formation meet the Righteous Path standards? Bai Mei Daoist coldly snorted and avoided answering. He only said with a murderous aura, To kill traitors like you, I must use thunderous methods. Haha, what a thunderous method. Then let's see whose method is better. Tang Zheng did not waste words with him and directly used strength to speak. It would not be too late to talk after defeating him. The Big Dipper 6 Directions Formation was already prepared. The puppet's energy was completely drawn out and gathered in midair, forming a ball of light. However, this ball of light was completely red and emitted an aura of death. Whoosh! The ball of light flew to the top of Daoist White Brow's head and rushed into his body as if he had been enlightened. In the next second, Bai Mei Daoist's body trembled as he bathed in the red light. His entire body turned blood red, and his eyes flickered with a bewitching red light. The horsetail whisk let out a sharp sound, and the blood-red strands of the whisk expanded in the wind. Soon, they were several meters long, like slender whips. Whoosh! The long whip swam, flying towards Tang Zheng, thousands and thousands of threads, continuous and unending. Hidden Mystic Sword slash! Tang Zheng roared, and the hidden sword flew out like a bolt of lightning, slashing at the threads of dust. However, the threads of dust did not break, as if they were extremely tough and bounced back. Wang! The hidden mystic sword quickly rebounded. This attack had no effect. Tang Zheng was slightly stunned. He didn't expect Bai Mei Daoist's attack to be so strong. The drifting strands of dust gave him a strange feeling. Bai Mei Daoist laughed complacently, as if victory was already in his grasp. Everyone else saw this scene. The road had turned around, and it was completely different from before. No one expected that Bai Mei Daoist, who had suffered a crushing defeat, would be so powerful again. However, everyone's attention was not limited to this. Many people looked at the puppets in horror and cried out, "Alliance leader, what did you do to them?" Obviously, they were more concerned about the puppets than Bai Mei Daoist. It turned out that those puppets were the best of the best from each sect. They had profound strength and were highly respected. Most of them were protectors and elders of the sect. Back then, Bai Mei Daoist used his identity as the alliance leader to gather these people to form the Heavenly Dipper 6 Directions Formation. This was to gather the strength of the strong and then become stronger. This was equivalent to gathering the top power of each sect. Its power was indeed extraordinary, and it killed many enemies. But now these people had become puppets. This was a scene that the people of these sects did not want to see. Their own sect's elders and protectors had been turned into puppets. Who could accept this cruel reality? Someone came to a realization and roared angrily. Baimei Daoist, explain clearly, what's going on? Yes, how did our elders become puppets? Who turned our protectors into puppets? Angry voices drowned out the sounds of the battle. Many sects even retreated, giving up on the fierce battle with their opponents. For a moment, the battle was not as intense as before. Apart from Baimei Daoist's trusted aides and some stubborn fellows, everyone else had given up on fighting. Their eyes were firmly locked on Baimei Daoist. Without these people restraining them, how could Baimei Daoist's trusted aides be a match for the ancestor and the others? The battle was quickly decided. This group of people was controlled and couldn't move. They could only watch helplessly as their opponent attacked them. Xiaobai walked in a circle in front of them and jokingly said, "You people are really stubborn. If you walk down a dark path, then you will be the leader of your alliance. Look at his actions. What's the difference between him and the demons? Is it worth it for you to use your lives to protect him?" Baimei Daoist's hair was disheveled and his entire body was shrouded in red light. He looked like a devil, completely different from his previous transcendent appearance. Baimei Daoist, you still haven't answered our question. Why are you so deranged as to turn them into puppets? Seeing that Baimei Daoist still hadn't answered, some people couldn't hold back and loudly questioned him. The art of puppetry was also a spell of the righteous Tao, but the people who were turned into puppets were all vicious and evil people, not people who should be on their side. Baimei Daoist's actions had violated a great taboo. Baimei Daoist naturally heard these questions. In order to protect his position, he had taken such a great risk and turned his former allies into puppets. This was even crueler than killing them. Xiaobai jokingly said, "If you don't answer, then you clearly have a guilty conscience. For the sake of your own selfish desires, you actually killed your allies. Is this still the alliance leader you want?" There was complete silence, and quite a few people lowered their heads. Those trusted aides also seemed to have lost their souls, and didn't dare to jump around. Xiaobai continued, "As the alliance leader, Baimei Daoist committed such a heinous crime. Thus, he is the true traitor of the righteous Tao and everyone's enemy. Now my master will seek justice for everyone and take down this traitor and public enemy." Wild Dog had been on Tang Zheng's side from the beginning, and had even switched sides and fought fiercely with the righteous Tao for a long time. He looked worriedly at the unpredictable Big Dipper 6 Directions true formation and said, "Baimei Daoist has used the art of puppetry. The Big Dipper 6 Directions true formation has changed and is extremely dangerous." Xiaobai waved his hand and said carelessly, "So what if he's powerful? He's still no match for my master. If you don't believe me, just wait and see." Xiaobai was also very clear that Tang Zheng needed to establish his might in front of the righteous Tao. Baimei Daoist had given him this opportunity. If he didn't make good use of it, wouldn't it be a waste? The others were skeptical. After all, they hadn't fully experienced Tang Zheng's strength. Looking at the completely different Baimei Daoist now, many people were uncertain. Chapter 1682. The white eyebrows Daoist was shrouded in a red light as he fiercely attacked Tang Zheng. Tens of thousands of strands of dust flew towards Tang Zheng like poisonous snakes spitting out their tongues. Hidden sword cut. Tang Zheng did not use any powerful moves at all. He just roared and slashed out with his sword. Baimei Daoist disdainfully raised the corner of his mouth. The horsetail whisk was incomparably tough. How could it be cut so easily? Wasn't that the best proof? He concentrated all his power and poured it into the horsetail whisk. Every whisker had a terrifying lethality. The overwhelming aura of death surged out with great momentum. The sharp sword light of the hidden sword finally fell on the whiskers. Clang. However, the scene from before did not occur. The tenacious strands of hair could not stop the hidden sword of Xian. Like crushing dry weeds, they all broke apart amidst the crisp sound. The hidden sword went straight in, as fast as lightning. Before Baimei Daoist could react, it was already at his forehead. Baimei Daoist was defeated. He was completely defeated. Bai Mei Daoist's eyes showed a look of disbelief. He could not understand how he was defeated like this. He tried to resist again, but the terrifying aura of the hidden sword dispelled his idea. He was sure that as long as he made the slightest move, the hidden sword could directly penetrate his forehead and kill him on the spot. He twisted his neck with difficulty and stared at Tang Zheng, who was not far away. He asked in horror, "How could this be?" Tang Zheng knew what the other party wanted to ask. He smiled faintly and said, "A mere third stage of the Mahayana stage dares to compete with me. A seventh stage of the Mahayana stage. Haha. I just wanted to see how many tricks you have. I didn't want to kill you immediately. I didn't expect you to have the illusion that you can defeat me. I don't know where your confidence comes from." Tang Zheng's voice was very harsh. It was as if he could hear the sound of Bai Mei Daoist's heart breaking. He completely destroyed the fluke and the line of defense in his heart. When the others heard the word seventh stage of the Mahayana stage, they all showed a look of horror. They scratched their heads and did not expect Tang Zheng's cultivation to be so strong. One by one, the people who originally provoked Tang Zheng shrank their necks. They felt a chill on their backs. They thought that they were lucky. They had just walked through the gates of hell and did not know it. With Tang Zheng's cultivation, their provocation was child's play. If he insisted on attacking, most of them would have no chance to resist, and then quietly reach the end of their lives. However, Tang Zheng did not do so and only destroyed their magical equipment. This was already showing mercy. Her original resentment towards Tang Zheng for destroying her magical equipment disappeared like smoke in thin air, leaving only the feeling of surviving a calamity in her heart. Tang Zheng ignored the others. He just stared at Bai Mei Daoist and said, "Your methods are really powerful. You killed your allies. Do you still have the qualifications to sit in the position of the Righteous Alliance leader?" Bai Mei Daoist stubbornly raised his head. He was not ashamed. Instead, he said proudly, "This is my method. How can it be your turn to criticize? Moreover, if you didn't force me step by step, why would I take such a risk?" Tang Zheng laughed involuntarily. "Could it be that you have angered everyone and done such a heinous thing as my fault?" Bai Mei Daoist said without hesitation. "Of course. Without your threat, why would I do this? Everyone, think about it from my point of view. If it was you, wouldn't you do the same?" Bai Mei Daoist angrily glared. His gaze swept over everyone. Many people lowered their heads in shame. It seemed that they really had the same thoughts as him. But most people still angrily glared at him. They were not fooled by his words. "Bai Mei Daoist, not only are your methods despicable, you are also good at talking. We are all people with a bottom line. Even in the face of danger, we will not harm our allies." Tang Zheng hit the nail on the head. Many people agreed and said with a common hatred, "Yes, we will not be as cruel as you. Bai Mei Daoist, you are not fit to be the Righteous Alliance leader. You have shamed the entire righteous path. You are the true traitor of the righteous path. Bai Mei Daoist, you are the traitor. You have shamed the righteous path." Accusations rang out in unison. "A bunch of hypocrites." Bai Mei Daoist spat out a mouthful of saliva and said disdainfully, "You have an excuse for this matter, and think that I am a threat to you. What about the other matter? You sent your son to inform Hao Tianwang, and then asked him to lead an army to attack Suicide Valley. What is this act of helping the tyrant?" Tang Zheng asked. The others fell into deep thought when they heard this. Previously, they did not believe these words, but at this moment they gradually began to believe them. Bai Mei Daoist's expression kept changing. He made a final struggle and said, "I didn't send my son to inform you. You are framing me." Tang Zheng's heart trembled. Bai Mei Daoist was truly a smart person. Even now, he had not completely lost his mind. He did not admit to this matter because he knew very well that this matter could not be compared to the matter of the puppet. If the matter of him colluding with Hao Tianwang was confirmed, then he really would not have a chance to turn the situation around, nor would he have any excuse. Then he would really have no way out. Furthermore, he knew that if Tang Zheng could not produce any concrete evidence, he could deny it. At the very least, no one else would have anything to say. He was walking on a tightrope, gambling on the last bit of luck. "You won't cry until you see the coffin." Bai Mei Daoist, your wishful thinking is wrong. Tang Zheng sneered. Bai Mei Daoist looked at Tang Zheng mockingly. He had made up his mind that he did not have any concrete evidence, so he was fearless. Tang Zheng's gaze drifted into the distance. With a move of his divine sense, he sensed a few familiar auras. With a thought, he came up with an idea and said, Bai Mei Daoist, didn't you say that I don't have any evidence? Actually, the evidence is very simple. The evidence is your son Xiaran. Bai Mei Daoist thought that Xiaran was definitely with Hao Tianwang. No matter how powerful Tang Zheng was, it was impossible for him to snatch Xiaran from Hao Tianwang. Thus Bai Mei Daoist disdainfully said, everything depends on your mouth. The key is the evidence. You said that my son is the evidence, then you should find him. Bai Mei Daoist was certain that Tang Zheng could not find his son, Xiaran, so he was fearless and incomparably arrogant. The corner of his mouth hooked up in a ridiculing smile that was particularly dazzling. Tang Zheng smiled faintly and said, naturally, I will find him. However, if he really stands in front of you, I'm afraid you'll be shocked. However, at that time, you won't have any excuses. Bai Mei Daoist obviously did not believe him and sneered. Tang Zheng's gaze drifted into the distance. 3 figures flew in from the entrance of the wildland's underground space. When Tang Zheng saw one of them clearly, his eyes lit up and the smile on the corner of his mouth became more and more intense. Everyone looked at Tang Zheng, and when they saw the change in his expression, they were confused. Many of the smart people followed his gaze. And when they saw the scene at the entrance, all of them trembled and turned pale with fright. To read the latest novel, please visit the website. Chapter 1683. The 3 figures finally approached. There were actually 2 people escorting a person. When everyone saw the face of the person being escorted, they all revealed expressions of disbelief. Bai Mei Daoist also saw this person, and his face instantly turned ashen. His mouth was wide open, and he looked extremely terrified. Lifesaver! The crowd cried out in alarm. The person being escorted was actually Bai Mei Daoist's son. Lifesaver! Wasn't that the so-called evidence that Tang Zheng was talking about? Bai Mei Daoist swore that it was impossible for Tang Zheng to find Lifesaver, but he didn't expect to be slapped in the face in the blink of an eye. A smile surfaced on the corner of Tang Zheng's mouth, and he looked at the 2 people beside him with praise in his eyes. These 2 people were Yi Yuan and Bewildering Mist. Tang Zheng had long wanted to deal with Bai Mei Daoist, but he knew that Bai Mei Daoist's position was not ordinary, and that if he wanted to shake him, he would need real evidence. And the only evidence was to sacrifice his life. Thus, he sent out Yi Yuan and Bewildering Mist, ignoring the danger, to guard the outskirts of the savage wasteland, waiting for the rabbit. This was because they believed that in the Battle of the Suicide Valley, Hao Tianwang would definitely not let him have an easy time. He would definitely escape back to the savage wasteland without stopping, so he would take the opportunity to capture him. Wouldn't that mean that he would have ready-made evidence? Tang Zheng's prediction was godly. Yi Yuan and Bewildering Mist were indeed waiting for Lifesaver at the edge of the savage wasteland. After a bitter battle, how could Lifesaver be a match for the 2 of them? He could only be captured. Tang Zheng's heart was set. He stared at Bai Mei Daoist aggressively and asked, Bai Mei Daoist, didn't you say that I didn't have any evidence? Now that the evidence is right in front of you, what else do you have to say? Bai Mei Daoist clenched his teeth and remained silent. It seemed that he could not find a suitable excuse. Everyone looked at Bai Mei Daoist in unison. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Bai Mei Daoist's expression changed again and again. He glared hatefully at Guming. The feeling of being slapped in the face by his own son was really unpleasant. Someone from the righteous faction was furious and questioned. Bai Mei Daoist, do you have anything else to say? That's right. Hurry up and tell me what's going on. Bai Mei Daoist racked his brains, but there was nothing he could do. Tang Zheng knew that Bai Mei Daoist hadn't really admitted defeat yet. He was still making a last-ditch struggle. Thus, he walked in front of Guming and said, Bai Mei Daoist, since you don't want to speak, let's listen to what your son has to say. Yi Yuan nodded towards Tang Zheng, pushed Guming, and urged, obediently tell us everything you've done, and let everyone know of your despicable actions. Guming's lips trembled slightly as he looked at Bai Mei Daoist in fear. He seemed to be extremely afraid, but he quickly lowered his head, not daring to look at him. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, he finally opened his mouth and said slowly, "I was ordered by my father to inform Hao Tianwang and let them attack the Suicide Valley." His words were concise and to the point, but it was like a sharp arrow that pierced into Bai Mei Daoist's heart. Bai Mei Daoist was stunned. He never thought that he would be betrayed by his son, risking his life to reveal all the inside information so neatly. Unfilial son. Bai Mei Daoist's anger accumulated in his chest, and he let out a loud roar that sounded like a thunderclap. Guming bent down in shame, as if he was about to sink into the dust, not daring to face his father. He silently said in his heart, "Father, don't blame me. If I don't tell the truth, then I'm dead for sure." Yi Yuan had warned him earlier that if he didn't reveal the truth, he would die without a doubt. Before he lost his life, he did not know the immensity of the heavens and the earth. He still had the thought of competing with Tang Zheng, but ever since he witnessed the battle of the Suicide Valley with his own eyes, this thought disappeared into thin air. He no longer dared to have such thoughts, because Tang Zheng was too strong, so strong that his heart was like dead ashes. He understood that even with his father, he had no hope of winning. He might as well tell the truth and admit everything in exchange for his life. He also knew that this would cause a fatal blow to his father, but in order to survive he couldn't care less. In the face of great calamity, everyone flew separately. This was the cruel reality. Bai Mei Daoist stared hatefully at Guming. How could he not understand his intentions? He angrily cursed unfilial son, but everything was to no avail. Everyone sighed in their hearts. Bai Mei Daoist's methods were impressive, but they never thought that he would have such a disappointing son. This was the outcome of Bai Mei Daoist. Many people felt a sense of satisfaction as if they had gotten their revenge. Bai Mei Daoist, you finally have nothing to say now, right? As the leader of the righteous path, you have commanded so many righteous paths, but I never thought that you would actually collude with Hao Tianwang and inform him. You are the true traitor of the righteous path. The crowd was furious, and someone vehemently criticized him. Yes, you are the biggest traitor. You have actually hidden for so long. Today you have finally been exposed in front of everyone. Obediently surrender and accept your punishment. Alliance leader has become a traitor, so he should be punished even more. What should he do? Death. Echoing one another, the righteous path that had long been drowned in anger condemned Bai Mei Daoist. When the word death came out, Bai Mei Daoist was not surprised at all. Because he had long been clear that once his evil intentions were exposed, he would definitely be punished with death. There was no other possibility. It was precisely because of this that he had been quibbling all this time. He would not shed tears until he saw the coffin. He slowly raised his head, his eyes filled with killing intent. An aura of death spread out from his body. He gnashed his teeth and hysterically said, "I am the leader of the righteous path. What qualifications do you have to sentence me to death? Only I can judge the crimes of others, no one can sentence me to death. You all stand on Tang Zheng's side and intend to kill me. Then I will kill you all first." As soon as his voice fell, an intense killing intent spread out and enveloped the nearest righteous path people. How could these people's strength be Bai Mei Daoist's opponent? They immediately bled from their 7 orifices and fell to the ground dead. The others were all enraged. Bai Mei Daoist, even at death's door you still dare to be so cruel. Kill him. Kill him. The crowd was enraged. Waves of shouts swept out like a tide, and the momentum was tremendous. Bai Mei Daoist also roared, "Kill." Those puppets moved. They quickly attacked the surrounding righteous path people. Many of them were from their sects when they were alive. Several righteous path people did not even have time to react before they received a fatal blow and died on the spot. Everyone was stunned. Cries of alarm sounded out. Bai Mei Daoist, you are too despicable. You actually ordered them to kill each other. Bai Mei Daoist not only refined these people into puppets, he also ordered them to kill their former sect members. This was even more despicable than refining them into puppets. Bai Mei Daoist coldly snorted and said, "You all betrayed the alliance leader. That is not the righteous path. What wrong is there in killing you all?" He has already turned into a demon. Everyone, do not be merciful. Kill this thief with your own hands and take revenge for our dead sect members. Everyone loudly shouted. Kill this thief with your own hands. Shouts filled with righteous indignation resounded through the clouds. To read a novel, please visit Chapter 1684. All of the righteous faction's murderous aura surged as they charged towards Bai Mei Daoist, and he immediately fell into a sea of people's war. There was no need for Tang Zheng to make a move. These people wished they could kill him with their own hands. Those few puppets could only kill instinctively, and in the end they were not a match for so many people, and were quickly subdued, while Bai Mei Daoist's murderous aura surged, and was much more powerful than the puppets. Just as the righteous faction's people approached him, they died on the spot. However, the other righteous faction's people were like a tide, advancing wave after wave, not fearing death at all, as if they would not give up until they killed Bai Mei Daoist. The righteous faction's people were either injured or killed, but Bai Mei Daoist was getting braver as he fought. Tang Zheng slightly frowned. This situation was not good. If the righteous faction's people died, it would be Tang Zheng's loss, because the righteous faction's people were still very useful to him. You still dare to resist stubbornly, surrender without a fight. Tang Zheng roared righteously. His body was like a swan, flying in front of Bai Mei Daoist, and the other righteous faction's people were immediately forced far away by his aura, unable to get close to Bai Mei Daoist, and naturally their lives were saved. Tang Zheng directly faced Bai Mei Daoist, revealing a look of disdain. Bai Mei Daoist stared at Tang Zheng with fire in his eyes, and said hysterically, Tang Zheng, if not for you, I would not have reached this stage today. All of this is because of you, go die. Whoosh. The horsetail whisk once again expanded, and thousands of strands of whisk attacked as fast as lightning. Tang Zheng stretched out his finger, and lightly tapped the air. The hidden mystic sword appeared out of thin air, following the direction of his finger. It swiftly chopped down. Boom. In the midst of the loud sound, the horsetail whisk exploded, turning into pieces, no longer able to grow strands of whisk. This treasure was completely destroyed. The hidden mystic sword's momentum did not decrease, and continued forward, instantly arriving in front of Bai Mei Daoist. A sharp sword aura flew into his body. His entire body trembled, as if he had been immobilized, and could no longer move. The originally berserk aura vanished like smoke in thin air, completely silenced. With just one move, the killing Bai Mei Daoist was defeated. The other people's gazes towards Tang Zheng changed again and again, in their hearts. Too powerful. Tang Zheng lightly clapped his fingers, and the hidden profound sword flew back into his body. He walked in front of the White Eyebrows Daoist, and although the White Eyebrows Daoist hated him to death, he could only stare at him and roar in anger. Tang Zheng, what did you do to me? Bai Mei Daoist, 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 Bai Mei Daoist Da. What are you going to do? Bai Mei Daoist's face was filled with fear, and quickly asked. Tang Zheng raised the corner of his mouth, but did not answer his question. But then, Bai Mei Daoist's body made a loud sound, and Bai Mei Daoist madly screamed. Ah! The screams resounded through the clouds, causing the others to be moved, but not many people pitied him. Instead, they felt very carefree, and very relieved. But in their hearts, they were a little curious. What did Tang Zheng do to Bai Mei Daoist, to make him suffer so much? You destroyed my Yuanying. After a long time, Bai Mei Daoist finally had the strength to tell the truth, but he no longer had the strength to shout. He was like a dead dog. When the others heard this, their hearts turned cold, and they all looked at Tang Zheng. He actually destroyed Bai Mei Daoist's Yuanying. To a cultivator, the Yuanying was the most fundamental. It was the source of all strength. And when the Yuanying was destroyed, their martial arts would naturally disappear. Bai Mei Daoist relied on his martial arts to strut around, so Tang Zheng destroyed his martial arts, making him lose his most precious thing, and then he would have nothing left. After the sword light destroyed the Yuanying, Bai Mei Daoist once again regained his freedom, but his body was weak, and he fell to the ground like a dead shrimp. He was no longer a threat. The others did not pity him. All of this was his own fault, and he could not blame anyone else. Tang Zheng took a step back and said, I'll leave him to you. You can do whatever you want with him. The righteous faction once again surrounded Bai Mei Daoist. Bai Mei Daoist raised his head, fiercely looked around and said, "You are a group of traitors. I am the leader of the righteous faction, but you listen to the slanderous words of an outsider." "Shut up." A roar rang out, interrupting Daoist White Brow's attempt to distort the truth. "You still have the face to talk about others. You are the most despicable and shameless. How do we deal with him? Didn't we just say it? His actions are all capital crimes. He will die without a doubt. He will die without a doubt." The crowd did not let him go just because his yuanying was destroyed. Since he was already sentenced to death, then he must be executed to the end. The righteous faction looked at each other, and as if their hearts were in sync, they began to circulate their martial arts. Seeing this scene, Bai Mei Daoist was still in shock, and hurriedly said, "I already have no yuanying. You still want to kill me?" No one answered him. But one by one, the treasured weapons flew up from the righteous path, and flew towards Bai Mei Daoist. Ah! The blazing light enveloped Bai Mei Daoist and he screamed in despair. Suddenly, the scream stopped abruptly. An earth-shattering boom erupted from the blazing light. Then, one by one, the magic treasures flew back into the hands of their respective owners. The light gradually dissipated, and Bai Mei Daoist's figure could no longer be seen. In that powerful attack, not even his bones were left. The righteous faction shared a common enemy, and could not help but heave a sigh of relief. This was revenge for their dead comrades. Seeing his father's fate, Gao Ming was so scared that his entire body went limp. He fell to the ground softly. He wasn't sad for his father, but he was completely frightened. He grieved for his father's death, and his heart was anxious. He didn't know what his fate would be. He raised his head in shock, looked at Yi Yuan, and said while trembling with fear, "I have already done everything you asked for. Now can you let me go?" How could Yi Yuan dare to let go of his life? He looked towards Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng understood and said, "You have committed many evil deeds and secretly colluded with the enemy. You want to escape this calamity just like that. Do you really think that everyone is a fool?" "Ah," Shiming screamed and stammered. "But you clearly promised me that once I told you the truth, you would let me live." "Then you should first ask them if they agree." Tang Zheng pointed at Xiaobai and the others. Xiaobai took the hint and stepped forward. The ancestor and the others also glared at Dao Sheng with righteous indignation. If it wasn't for him informing them, the Suicide Valley wouldn't have been destroyed, and they wouldn't have had to flee to the wilderness. "Of course I won't." Xiaobai closed in on Dao Sheng, revealing his killing intent. With so many of his subordinates dead and injured, how could he let Dao Sheng off so easily? "You all went back on your word." Risking his life shouted. "Haha. Is there a need to talk about credibility with people like you who have no bottom line?" Xiaobai asked disdainfully. Shi Ximing had nothing to say in response. He had regretted countless things, but this time, it was finally his turn to suffer the consequences of his own actions. "Yes, kill him. He is also a traitor of the righteous path." Seeing this, the other righteous path members all shouted out in unison, their killing intent soaring into the clouds. "As everyone wishes." Xiaobai shouted loudly, and with a flick of his finger, a ball of flame emerged from his fingertip, quickly changing, and turning into a ball of flame that landed on Dao Sheng's body. Chapter 1685. 1 Second to Remember. Wonderful novel to read at any time. The white eyebrows movement and the sacrificing one's life. Everybody felt as if a mouthful of resentment had been released from their chests and abdomens. Gradually they calmed down. Their mood also calmed down. What should they do next? This thought surfaced in everyone's mind. They looked at each other in dismay and began to whisper to each other. "Silence!" Xiaobai suddenly roared loudly. Everyone turned their heads and looked at Xiaobai with a complicated expression. Xiaobai said in a clear voice, "Now let me invite my master to speak." After saying that, he took the initiative to take a step back, exposing Tang Zheng to everyone. Tang Zheng coughed dryly, cleared his throat, and said in a deep voice, "Everyone, as the leader of the Righteous Alliance, Bai Mei Daoist knowingly broke the law and secretly colluded with the enemy. Now that he has been executed, do you think this matter is over?" Everyone's heart trembled, not understanding the meaning of Tang Zheng's words. This is only the beginning. Tang Zheng said decisively, Bai Mei Daoists colluded with Hao Tianwang. And Hao Tianwang sent troops to attack the Suicide Valley and returned in defeat. How do you think Hao Tianwang will vent his anger? Everyone revealed a suspicious expression and became even more confused. All of this is because of Bai Mei Daoist, so Hao Tianwang will naturally vent his anger on him. Bai Mei Daoist and you are all of the same path, so will Hao Tianwang let you go? The powerful question made everyone speechless. After careful consideration, they realized that Tang Zheng was not an alarmist, and Hao Tianwang was very likely to vent his anger on them. Bai Mei Daoist is dead, then what should we do? Someone could not hold back and asked loudly. Tang Zheng was waiting for this question. He had to make the righteous path worry about their own survival, so that he could intervene. Do you have the confidence to fight against Hao Tianwang? Tang Zheng was not in a hurry to answer, but threw out another question. The righteous path looked at each other. No one had the courage or confidence to say that they could fight against Hao Tianwang, because they really did not have the strength. If you don't have the strength to fight against Hao Tianwang, then there is only one result, death. Tang Zheng said casually. The word death made everyone's hair stand on end, and their faces turned pale. It was as if Hao Tianwang had already arrived in front of them, and death was right in front of them. Wild Dog had an idea and said loudly, But you have the strength to deal with Hao Tianwang. These words quickly ignited everyone's hope. Everyone looked eagerly at Tang Zheng. Wild Dog continued, You exposed the true faces of Bai Mei Daoist and his son, and cleaned up the sect for the righteous path. In the future, with you leading the righteous path, won't we be able to fight against Hao Tianwang? Wild Dog was a smart person. He had long known that Tang Zheng wanted to control the righteous path, but had not cut in. Now wasn't this the perfect opportunity to cut in? In the righteous path, only Wild Dog had the deepest relationship with Tang Zheng. This naturally needed him to bring it up. Otherwise, if he let Tang Zheng bring it up himself, wouldn't that be too degrading? Wild Dog was able to survive in the cracks because he had his own set of survival rules. If he could not understand these rules, then he would not have been able to survive until now. Tang Zheng gave Wild Dog a deep look, and there was a look of approval in the depths of his eyes. He had not misjudged Wild Dog. Wild Dog had helped him a lot. The righteous path had long been tempered over the years. They understood that in these troubled times, they needed to find a backer, only then could they survive. What kind of people were Hao Tianwang and King Wuling, and how powerful they were, they had long experienced. Therefore, they needed someone to stand in front of them, only then could they survive. That makes sense. Tang Zheng has cleaned up the sect for the righteous path, and his cultivation is extremely high. No one can compare to him. It is natural for him to be the leader of the righteous path. Someone agreed, and the voices of agreement grew louder and louder. Tang Zheng is the popular choice. We are sincerely convinced. Bai Mei Daoist's cronies were originally fence-sitters. Their boss was dead. How could they dare to be noisy? They were deeply afraid that Tang Zheng would pursue them. Instead, they were the ones who shouted the loudest. Of course, there was no lack of independent thinkers in the righteous path. They questioned. Tang Zheng is not a member of the righteous path. Can he be the leader of the righteous path just because he is strong? If that's the case, doesn't that mean Hao Tianwang is more qualified to be the leader? As soon as these words came out, everyone fell silent. It was as if everyone was frightened by these words. Everyone looked at the person who spoke. It was actually the leader of Kingsaman, Taixuzi. Taixuzi seemed to have thrown caution to the wind. He said righteously, Moreover, he is with the traitor of our sect. That makes him even more qualified to be the leader of the righteous path. Taixuzi had wanted to rely on Tang Zheng in the past. Moreover, Tang Zheng had saved everyone in Kingsaman. However, Tang Zheng was with Tian Chanzi, and Tian Chanzi was a traitor of Kingsaman. Taixuzi was an upright person. He could not get over the hurdle in his heart. Although everyone else agreed that Tang Zheng should be the leader, he could not sit by and do nothing. He boldly raised an objection. Taixuzi, what nonsense are you talking about? The others were afraid that Tang Zheng would be angry, so they all reprimanded him. Tang Zheng looked at Taixuzi deeply. He did not pay much attention to him in the past. He did not expect him to be so bold. He was not angry. Instead, he was happy. At least it proved that Taixuzi was an upright person. Taixuzi's expression changed when he was criticized by everyone. He was under great pressure, but he still insisted, "I'm telling the truth. It's just that you don't dare to say it. Moreover, this concerns Kingsuman's reputation. I have to say it." Looking at this scene, Heaven Monk's thoughts were extremely complicated. He had never thought of this scene before, and never thought that he would ruin Tang Zheng's plan. He knew that Tang Zheng needed the strength of the righteous faction. This was the most important factor in helping Xiao Bai reclaim the Outland. Moreover, the righteous faction also needed Tang Zheng. Without a strong leader like Tang Zheng, the righteous faction would be in a state of disunity. Their days in the Outland would be even more difficult, and they might even face a disaster. Even his master, Kingsuman, was no exception. Everyone looked at Tang Zheng. They did not know how he would respond. Tang Zheng knew that this was a tricky situation. He had to protect Tian Chanzi, which meant that he was standing against Kingsuman. This was an unsolvable problem. The only person who could solve this problem was Tian Chanzi. However, Tian Chanzi would rather die than talk about what happened in the past. Tian Chanzi knew that this was all on him. He was struggling in his heart. Taixuzi said, "If there's nothing to say, then the matter of the righteous faction's leader will have to be discussed later." Xiao Bai looked at Tang Zheng worriedly. He asked in a low voice, "Master, what should we do? Do you need me to shut Taixuzi up?" Tang Zheng shook his head. If he really did that, he would be no different from Bai Mei Daoist. In an instant, the originally favorable situation was ruined. Everyone felt as if 1,000 pounds of weight had been placed on their hearts. Many of the righteous path stared at Taixuzi indignantly, wishing that they could beat him up and shut him up. In such a dangerous environment like the sky beyond heaven, if the Heaven Monk did not stand up for them, how would they live their lives? Thump! Suddenly, there was the sound of footsteps. Tian Chanzi walked forward and stood in front of Taixuzi. He said in a low voice, "Kingsuman said that I am a traitor. Because of what happened in the past, I do not want to ruin Kingsuman's reputation. Therefore, I am willing to bear this infamy. However, if I don't tell the truth now, not only will I bear the infamy, but I will also implicate Tang Zheng, who has always cared for me. Today, I will let you know who the real traitor of Kingsuman is." Please visit this website to read the latest novel. Chapter 1686. Tian Chanzi's words were powerful and resonating. Everyone's spirit was shaken as they pricked up their ears and stared at him with burning eyes. Tang Zheng's eyes lit up as the corners of his mouth curled into a smile. He had always believed that Tian Chanzi was innocent, and that there was definitely some inside story. It was just that Tian Chanzi was unwilling to mention it. Now it seemed that his eyes were right. There really was some inside story. Tian Chanzi was unwilling to mention it, because he was worried about Kingsuman's reputation. From this, it could be seen that he was fiercely protective of his sect. How could someone who was so protective of his sect be a traitor? Most of the people were in a gossipy mood and couldn't wait to hear what Tian Chanzi had to say. Taixuzi's heartstrings trembled as his expression changed slightly. "What do you mean by this? Don't you hate traitors so much? I'll let you know who the real traitor is," Tian Chanzi calmly said. Taixuzi seemed to have a bad premonition as he braced himself and said, "I'd like to hear what you have to say." He firmly believed in the things passed down by his sect. Since generation after generation used Tian Chanzi as a negative example, then he must be extremely bad. He must be someone that Kingsuman deeply hated. Tian Chanzi took a deep breath and closed his eyes slightly as if he was immersed in deep memories. His face revealed a complex expression. Sweetness, pain, happiness. All kinds of complex expressions interweaved on his face, as if he was drawing all kinds of gorgeous colors on a drawing board. Tian Chanzi opened his mouth and slowly spoke. Vivid scenes were displayed in front of everyone's eyes like a scroll painting. 1,000 years ago, Kingsuman was still a famous sect. 3 youths, 1 male and 2 females, entered Kingsuman's sect and became martial brothers and sisters. The oldest of them was given the name Tianchanzi by the sect, and was the senior brother. The fairy-like girl was given the name Miao-yin. The other youth was given the name Tianchanzi. The three martial brothers and sisters cultivated together and comprehended together, as if they were one person. The stars changed and the three grew up. Their cultivation levels were gradually separated. Tianchanzi's cultivation level was the highest, followed by Miao-yin, and Tianchanzi's cultivation level was slightly lower and ranked third. The three of them were the top figures of Kingsaman's younger generation. Even in the entire cultivation world, they weren't inferior. In these 10 years, Tianchanzi and Miao-yin fell in love with each other, and secretly developed feelings for each other. However, Tianchanzi also fell in love with Miao-yin. Tianchanzi didn't reveal his relationship with Miao-yin out of consideration for his junior brother's feelings. Although it was widely rumored in Kingsaman that Tianchanzi was the next sect master, the sect master of Kingsaman didn't make a decision arbitrarily. In order to test who was the most suitable candidate, he sent the three of them down the mountain to gain experience. Tianchanzi didn't know this was a test for the sect master selection. However, Tianchanzi eavesdropped on the conversation between the sect master and the elders and knew the significance of this experience. He knew that if he won this experience, he might become the next sect master. If he became the sect master, he would have a chance to be with Miao-yin. Therefore, during the experience, Tianchanzi did his best to perform well. He destroyed the devil's nest and became famous. However, compared to him, Tianchanzi's performance was more dazzling and his reputation was more prominent. Tianchanzi sadly found that no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't compete with Tianchanzi. Jealousy and hatred grew in his heart. In order to achieve his goal, he began to use underhanded means. He even deliberately leaked information to the devil's army, and attracted the devil's army to hunt him down. This experience didn't only involve the three of them. There were other outstanding young people in Kingsaman who were led by Tianchanzi. These people were surrounded by the devil's army and suffered heavy casualties. In the end, except for the three of them, the rest were all killed in battle and fled back to Kingsaman. The sect leader flew into a rage and investigated the responsibility of the heaven monk, believing that he had undeniable responsibility for all of this. Tianchanzi was punished by the sect master to reflect on his mistakes for 3 years. 3 years later, when he returned to the public, everything had changed. Tianchanzi suddenly became an influential figure in Kingsaman. Tianchanzi didn't care. He didn't like to fight for power. Because he felt guilty about the death of his fellow sect members, he didn't care about the affairs of the sect. The only obsession in his heart was his junior sister Miao-yin. The sect master of Kingsaman passed away, and passed the position to Tianchanzi. He even betrothed Miao-yin to Tianchanzi. Tianchanzi was shocked and desperate. He had once expressed his love for Miao-yin to the sect master, and hoped that the sect master would let them be together. The sect master had already agreed. Tianchanzi was deeply hurt when the sect master went back on his words. Seeing that Tianchanzi and Miao-yin's wedding date was approaching, Tianchanzi didn't want to see it happen. He left Kingsaman without hesitation. While traveling outside, he had unintentionally caught a demon clan, and the demon clan had unintentionally revealed the matter of him cooperating with Tianchanzi. Only then did Heaven Monk understand that the reason for his crushing defeat back then was because Tianchanzi had leaked the news. Tianchanzi, who had lost all hope, was reignited with fighting spirit and anger. He went back on his words in Kingsaman, and went to reason with Tianchanzi. Tianchanzi was already the sect master, and had already married Miao-yin. Tianchanzi naturally returned without success. Tianchanzi didn't admit it at all. Instead, he slandered Tianchanzi for colluding with the devil race. In addition, the elders in Kingsaman found the death of the former sect master strange. They suspected that someone killed him, and it was someone very close to him. Tianchanzi took the opportunity to pin the crime on Tianchanzi. He said that Tianchanzi killed the sect master because he saw that the position of sect master was hopeless. Tianchanzi's methods were impressive. Although he hadn't been the sect master for long, he had already secretly controlled most of the people in Kingsaman. When he gave an order, most of the people naturally denounced Tianchanzi, and wanted to capture him to avenge the former sect master. After a fierce battle, Tian Chanzi escaped with wounds all over his body. However, he didn't run away. Instead, he found his junior martial sister Miao Yin. After Miao Yin married Tian Chanzi, she gradually discovered his true colors. Naturally, she eloped with Tian Chanzi and left Kingsaman. Tian Chanzi was furious. He sent out countless people to kill the two of them. He also announced Tian Chanzi's numerous crimes, and nailed him on the pillar of shame as a traitor. Tian Chanzi and Miao Yin hid from place to place. In the end, Miao Yin died in the hands of the enemy. Before she died, she left a last wish for Tian Chanzi to find a way to return to Kingsaman and wash away the shame on him. Tian Chanzi was heartbroken when his beloved died. If it weren't for Miao Yin's last wish, he would have followed in her footsteps. Tian Chanzi already knew that the culprit was Tian Chanzi. The murder of the sect master, and the so-called marriage arranged by the sect master, were also orchestrated by Tian Chanzi. Therefore, Tian Chanzi had to collect detailed evidence in order to overthrow Tian Chanzi. Although Tian Chanzi inherited the position of sect master, the elders in Kingsaman still had the power to impeach the sect master. However, if he wanted the elders to listen to his grievances and evidence, there must be conditions. There was no chance for him to speak in front of them. The only condition was that he had to make a great contribution to Kingsaman. Unparalleled martial arts was one of the conditions. As long as Tian Chanzi found a set of unparalleled martial arts and offered it to Kingsaman, the elders would listen to his grievances. Unfortunately, in order to obtain the legendary ancient Tong Tian scroll, his soul was unfortunately sucked into the scroll along with the Yin demon. To read the latest novel, please visit Chapter 1687. The Heaven Monk spoke tirelessly. The events of the past were full of twists and turns, causing people to be intoxicated by it, their hearts rising and falling. Many people were deeply attracted by the fate of the Heaven Monk. They suddenly realized, so this was the inside story of the past. Many people felt that it was unfair for him. Generations after generations of Kingsaman had labeled Tian Chanzi as a traitor. This was a great shame. It must have been Tian Chanzi's doing. Everyone gnashed their teeth at Tian Chanzi. How could there be such a despicable person in the world? Tang Zheng, Xiaobai, and the others were the most familiar with Tian Chanzi. It was hard to imagine that Tian Chanzi, who was usually optimistic and cheerful, had such a complicated past. The pain he had suffered was moving, and under his usual calm or happy appearance hid a pain that ordinary people could not bear. Everyone was in awe of him. Tang Zheng looked at Tian Chanzi seriously. There were so many things he wanted to say, but he couldn't say them. Tian Chanzi couldn't hide the pain on his face. Recalling the past was tantamount to tearing open a scar that had been covered in dust for a long time. Taixuzi and the people of Kingsaman were stunned. This was completely different from what they had heard since they were young. Was there really so much inside story? Many people were skeptical. After all, they weren't like the others. They had deep feelings and respect for Kingsaman. It was hard for them to accept such subversive information. Taixuzi was shaken. His face turned pale and his lips trembled. After a long time he said, Tian Chanzi, since you have suffered so much, why didn't you say it earlier? Why did you only announce it now? Did you make it up on purpose? Tian Chanzi's mouth twitched. This is Kingsaman's scandal. Once exposed, Kingsaman's reputation will be ruined. As a person of Kingsaman, how can I sacrifice Kingsaman's reputation for myself? If this matter didn't affect Tang Zheng, I wouldn't let these dusty pasts see the light of day. I see. Everyone had an expression of sudden realization. They were filled with admiration, moved by Tian Chanzi's spirit of self-sacrifice, as well as his deep feelings for the Clear Void sect. Taixuzi's eyes kept changing. He couldn't tell whether Tian Chanzi was telling the truth or not. As the leader of Kingsaman, he didn't know what to do. Everyone looked at each other. They didn't know how to deal with this matter. Tang Zheng was moved. He understood that Tian Chanzi did all this for him. Since this was the case, he had the responsibility to wash away the shame on Tian Chanzi. Tang Zheng was moved. His expression was stern. He asked, Tian Chanzi, you collected evidence of Tian Songzi's crimes. Now you can announce it to everyone and prove your innocence. The others immediately grasped this key point. They looked at Tian Chanzi with anticipation and urged, "Yes, hurry up and announce the evidence of Tian Songzi's crimes. Then the truth will come to light. No one will suspect you anymore." Tian Chanzi looked at Tang Zheng with gratitude. He couldn't lose the evidence of Tian Songzi's crimes. After all, he had spent a lot of effort to obtain it. It was also the evidence to prove his innocence. Tian Chanzi hesitated for a moment. Under the encouraging and expectant gazes of Tang Zheng and the others, Tian Chanzi waved his hand in the air, and a light screen appeared. This light screen was very magical. It was like a movie being projected in the air. It was very clear, and the people on the screen were very lifelike, as if they were about to come out. There were two different groups of people on the screen. One group had one person while the other had more than 10 people. Everyone's pupils shrank. They immediately recognized that it was Tian Songzi because there was a jade pendant on his waist with the words, Tian Songzi carved on it. This is the demon race's illusion art. Those who knew their stuff immediately recognized this light screen. It was a technique of the demon race, but it didn't have any offensive power. It was a technique used to record images. This must have been recorded by the demon race when Tian Songzi was plotting with them. Tian Songzi didn't know about it. The demon race is really cunning. They actually used the illusion art. The Devil Clan's actions have a deep meaning. Once Tian Kanzi controls the distinct void sect, his status will be high and his identity will be illustrious. Then, the Devil Clan will be able to use the phantom technique to record everything, and use it to threaten Tian Kanzi. They will make the distinct void sect their puppet, and help them do things. I remember now. I once heard the seniors in the sect mention this. Back then, the righteous faction had tried to encircle and annihilate the devil race several times, but all of them returned in failure. Even the originally well-planned encirclement and annihilation that was sure to be a sure win came to nothing. It was as if someone had leaked information. However, there was no evidence and this matter was left unsettled. Could it be that someone really leaked the information to the demon race? And this person was Tian Songzi? Someone had an idea and questioned. I think it's very possible. He was already the sect master of Kingsman at that time. His status and position were very high. Naturally, no one would suspect him and no one would dare to investigate him. This matter will naturally be left unsettled, and there will be no conclusion. Everyone's analysis was clear and logical. The truth was slowly coming to light. Taixuzi stared at the screen in a daze. He obviously knew that the illusion art could not be faked. This meant that Tian Songzi was indeed in cahoots with the demon race. As for whether that person was Tian Songzi or not, Taixuzi was 100% sure, because Kingsman had clear portraits of the previous sect masters. Taixuzi had seen them countless times. How could he forget or be mistaken? The screen disappeared. Everyone was filled with righteous indignation. They were all members of the Orthodox faction, and couldn't help but feel humiliated. After Tian Chanzi finished speaking, he actually let out a sigh of relief. It was as if he had completed a part of Miao Yin's last wish. He felt a bit more at ease. Tang Zheng stared at Taixuzi with a burning gaze and asked, "You still don't believe me?" Tian Songzi frowned and had nothing to say. Tang Zheng looked around and stared at all the Orthodox faction members. His voice was like a bell as he said, "Now everyone knows who the real traitor is?" Tian Songzi. Tian Songzi. Roars of anger could topple mountains and overturn seas. Many people were filled with righteousness. How could they tolerate this kind of injustice? They all shouted with hatred for a common enemy. Tang Zheng calmly nodded and said, "Yes, the real traitor is Tian Songzi, and Tian Chanzi is the most innocent. He has endured thousands of years of infamy. From today onwards, this infamy will end here. No one can think of splashing dirty water on Tian Chanzi. I also won't allow anyone to splash dirty water on Tian Chanzi." This declaration was simple and crude, but it was filled with sincerity. No one dared to question it. Taixuzi lowered his head. He could not say a single word of rebuttal. The other members of Kingsman felt even more humiliated. Not only did they sympathize with Tian Chanzi's situation, But they were also bitterly disappointed and distressed for their sect to have such a scandal. Chapter 1688. The time had come. Wild Dog and the others shouted. Tian Chanzi was slandered. He is not a traitor. Tian Songzi is the traitor. Yes, Tian Chanzi is the true righteous one. He is our comrade. The voices rose and fell, and no one doubted the Heaven Monk anymore. The people from the Clear Void sect looked at the Heaven Monk with eyes full of sympathy and shame, ashamed of the wrong views that they had always insisted on. However, the Kingsaman people did not dare to express their opinions directly. They looked at Taiksuzi, the sect master. He was the one who had to make the decision. Taiksuzi's expression kept changing. It was as if a mountain was on his shoulders. He was in a dilemma. If he cleared Tian Chanzi's name, he would have to convict Tian Songzi, the sect master from 1,000 years ago. As a junior, it was disgraceful. However, if he did not do so, Kingsaman's reputation would be ruined in front of everyone. He would not be able to establish himself in the righteous world. Kingsaman would be isolated. In the end, it was not hard to imagine what would happen to Kingsaman. Kingsaman was destroyed by him. He would have to bear the blame. Yes. Taiksuzi took a deep breath. His eyes gradually became firm. He had made up his mind. He walked towards Heaven Monk step by step. Everyone held their breaths, knowing that this matter was about to be settled. Among them, the most nervous person was Tian Chanzi. This was related to his long-cherished wish and Sweet Sound's last wish. He could not predict the outcome. Huff. His breathing quickened. Taiksuzi stood in front of Tian Chanzi. He looked serious and said firmly, Taiksuzi of Kingsaman greets Senior Tian Chanzi. Taiksuzi got down on one knee and prostrated himself in front of Tian Chanzi. Everyone was silent, but everyone understood what this meant. Taiksuzi admitted that Tian Chanzi was wrongly accused and nailed Tian Chanzi onto the pillar of shame. It was his decision as the sect master, as well as the decision of all the people in Kingsaman. Tian Chanzi's expression became extremely emotional. His whole body trembled, and tears glistened in his eyes. After knowing Heaven Monk for so long, Tang Zheng had never seen him like this before. His heart was filled with sorrow, and his heart was also moved. Taiksuzi stood up and said respectfully, Kingsaman welcomes Tian Chanzi back to Kingsaman. When the other members of the Clear Void sect heard this, they all knelt down on one knee and kowtowed. In unison they said respectfully, we respectfully invite Senior Heaven Monk to return to the Clear Void sect. Their voices were loud and resonated above everyone's heads. It shook their hearts. Tears flowed out of his eyes, and 2 lines of tears hung on Heaven Monk's cheeks. This was the goal that he had always dreamed of, and now it had finally been realized. His lips trembled, and he said intermittently, Miao-in. Did you hear that? I've finally returned to my sect. Everyone was moved by his emotions. Tian Chanzi started sobbing softly and squatted on the ground. He did not have any image at all, but his image in everyone's hearts was extremely high, even higher than a mountain. Taiksuzi said again, the position of the sect master of Kingsaman should have belonged to Senior Tian Chanzi. From today onwards, you are the sect master of Kingsaman. What? Taiksuzi's words shocked everyone again. They looked at Taiksuzi in disbelief. He was willing to hand over the position of the sect master to someone else. Few people could compare to him. Tian Chanzi looked up and shook his head. He ignored the tears on his face and said, No. How can this be? The position of the sect master belongs to you. How can I be the sect master? Taishuzi's tone was firm as he said sincerely, back then, Senior should have inherited the position of sect master, but it was snatched away by Tian Chanzi's scheming, causing the distinct Void sect's reputation to be tarnished. Now that you have taken over the position of the sect master, Kingsaman is finally back on the right path. Please don't refuse. Tian Chanzi was speechless. He did not know how to refute. His biggest wish was to return to Kingsaman. He did not covet the position of the sect master. To him, power was nothing more than a passing cloud. Taiksuzi did not give him a chance to refuse. He knelt down again and said, Taiksuzi of Kingsaman greets the sect master. Greetings, sect master. The other Kingsaman people also knelt down again. Tian Chanzi looked at the group of disciples who knelt down. He was filled with emotions and did not know what to do. The corner of Tang Zheng's mouth revealed a gratified smile, and advised, "Heaven monk, this is what everyone wants. Besides, as Taixuzi said, you are the sect master to put an end to Kingsaman's past and create a future for Kingsaman. Please don't refuse." Tian Chanzi looked at Tang Zheng in a daze. Did he really have the right to be the sect master? After all, he had been away from Kingsaman for so long. However, Tang Zheng's encouraging look gave him great courage and motivation. Phew. He heavily exhaled a mouthful of turbid air, and recovered his solemn expression. Looking at everyone in the distinct void sect, he said in a deep voice, "Many thanks for everyone's love. I will definitely not disappoint everyone's kind intentions. From now on, our distinct void sect will be united as one, and we will once again regain our former glory and glory." The clear void sect all raised their heads, their eyes filled with fervor. The heaven monk had said what they had always wished for. Kingsaman used to be one of the most prestigious sects in Kingsaman. However, it had fallen so far. Everyone in Kingsaman was disappointed, and did not want to return to the glory of the past. However, their talents had withered. Even Taixuzi, the sect master, was not as good as the other sections. How could they rise among the orthodox sects? However, things were different now. With Tian Chanzi, Kingsaman would truly rise. Besides, Tian Chanzi and Tang Zheng were very close. Kingsaman had all the advantages. How could they not rise? Kingsaman people stood up. They straightened their backs and stuck out their chests. Their spirits seemed to have changed. The others were filled with emotions. Wild Dog looked from Tian Chanzi to Tang Zheng. He said loudly, "The truth is out. Tian Chanzi is not a traitor. Therefore, Tang Zheng is the rightful sect master. Does anyone have any objections?" No one in Kingsaman has any objections. We support the new alliance master. Taixuzi was the first to express his stance. The other Kingsaman people followed suit. The distinct void sect's rise was imminent, and all of this was thanks to Tang Zheng. Even though the distinct void sect's reputation had been affected to a certain extent, but in the future, when they rise, this little bit of influence would not be worth mentioning. If Tian Chanzi did not return, Taixuzi could not guarantee how long Kingsaman would last. Perhaps they would disappear from the world in the near future. Comparing the two, the current situation was the best outcome. The others did not have any objections. They all expressed their agreement. Tian Chanzi returned the favor. He stepped forward and bowed to Tang Zheng respectfully. He shouted loudly, "Greetings, Alliance Master." "Greetings, Alliance Master." The others were either convinced from the bottom of their hearts or forced by the situation. All of them bowed down to Tang Zheng and shouted loudly, their voices toppling the mountains and overturning the seas, shaking everyone's hearts. For the latest novel to read, please visit Chapter 1689. All of the righteous faction members kowtowed to Tang Zheng. Not only that, Xiaobai also kowtowed. His kowtow naturally led the elder ancestor, and the others to kowtow as well. Yi Dingdang giggled and also kowtowed mischievously. When the others saw this, how could they not kowtow? Thus, in this huge space in the boorish desolation, other than Tang Zheng who was standing alone, everyone else kowtowed to Tang Zheng. Their movements were neat and uniform, and their momentum was like a rainbow. Tang Zheng was not an indecisive person. He needed the strength of the righteous faction. Since the righteous faction had pledged their allegiance, whether it was out of sincerity or because of the situation, he did not care. Naturally, there was no reason for him to refuse. He swept his gaze around in a dignified manner and said lightly, "It would be impolite to refuse. Then I will take up the position of alliance leader. Everyone rise." Their goal was achieved. Everyone stood up and looked at Tang Zheng with complicated gazes. There was no lack of excitement and suspicion. Tang Zheng did not mind. He was confident that in time, he could make these people pledge their allegiance to him wholeheartedly. Double happiness came at once. Tian Chanzi took over as sect leader, and Tang Zheng became alliance leader. The righteous faction seemed to have gained a backbone. The boorish desolation underground was a scene of joy and harmony. There was no sign of the hostility and danger from before. A new broom sweeps clean. Everyone was paying attention to Tang Zheng, waiting for him to come up with a new countermeasure to resist Hao Tianwang's attack. Tang Zheng had already thought of a countermeasure. He was confident, and throughout the heavenly chess. Most people did not understand the power of the heavenly chess. They could not help but be puzzled. They did not know what was so special about the heavenly chess that Tang Zheng would give it so much hope. Tang Zheng was not in a hurry to explain. There was no proof for this kind of thing. Only when everyone witnessed it with their own eyes would they be able to understand its profoundness and essence. No one disobeyed Tang Zheng's orders. They all followed his instructions and arranged the heavenly chess. Tang Zheng knew the heavenly chess like the back of his hand. He was not inferior to the creator of the heavenly chess, Ji Wuxiang. Furthermore, Tang Zheng's knowledge far surpassed Ji Wuxiang's. Therefore, Tang Zheng was the only one who knew that the new heavenly chess was slightly different from the original heavenly chess. The celestial chess covered a huge area. The celestial chess was set up in the wildlands and the surrounding areas. Tang Zheng knew this area like the back of his hand even without the need for soldiers to investigate. Nothing could escape his notice. After all, the wildlands was a wasteland where not even a blade of grass grew. It was not a good idea for them to hide here for too long. The celestial chess could protect the boorish land and prevent them from being completely annihilated. However, they still had to think of other ways to find a breakthrough. Everyone knew that taking back Sky Beyond Sky was going to be a long battle, so they had to be prepared for a long battle. Before the army moved, the provisions would move first. This was a well-known fact. Although a cultivator's dependence on food had decreased a lot, a cultivator still needed to eat in the end. It was just a matter of time. Therefore, the food problem needed to be solved urgently. Many of the righteous faction's treasures had been destroyed by Tang Zheng. Moreover, the entire righteous faction's treasures were very outdated. Not to mention holy artifacts, there were not even many heaven-grade treasures. Therefore, collecting materials and refining treasures was the most important thing. However, the 9 revolving pill furnace was still in the hands of the King of Medicine. They could only collect materials for the time being. As a native of Sky Beyond Sky, the elder ancestor understood Sky Beyond Sky the most. He was also not unfamiliar with the wildlands. After hearing Tang Zheng's words, he could not help but fall into deep thought. The others began to discuss and brainstorm. They all wanted to contribute a little bit of their strength. Collecting these things in the wildlands is like trying to get fish from a tree. It's impossible. The elder ancestor said decisively. This was like a bucket of cold water being poured over their heads. Everyone quivered and looked at the elder ancestor, their eyes asking why. The wildlands is a wasteland. How can there be food and raw materials for refining treasures? The elder ancestor explained. Tang Zheng thought, if a wasteland can be turned into an oasis like a desert, then wouldn't the wildlands be turned into fertile land? However, this would require the Tree of Life. When he thought of the Tree of Life, Tang Zheng thought of the fire qilin. This was a divine beast. If he could tame the fire qilin, it would be a great help. As long as he could find the Tree of Life, it would not be difficult to find the fire qilin. Sky Beyond Sky was a large world. Naturally, there would be a Tree of Life. Tang Zheng could not hold back his curiosity and hurriedly asked, "Where is the Tree of Life in Sky Beyond Sky?" The Tree of Life was very important. If the Tree of Life could be moved to the wildlands, then wouldn't the wildlands be turned into an oasis? The problem of ingredients would be easily solved. Everyone looked at the elder ancestor, hoping to hear the whereabouts of the Tree of Life from him. Unexpectedly, the elder ancestor's eyes were tightly knit together. He said with a frown, "What is the Tree of Life? I've never seen it before. Naturally, I don't know where it is." Tang Zheng stared at the elder ancestor with a burning gaze. Seeing that he was not joking, he could not help but be stunned for a moment. He said nervously, "The Tree of Life is the foundation of the great wide world. The Tree of Life can change the weather and spiritual qi, turning a desert into an oasis. You've lived in Sky Beyond Sky for so many years. How could you have never heard of the Tree of Life?" The elder ancestor nodded with certainty. I've indeed never heard of it. The others can testify that no one in Sky Beyond Sky has ever heard of the Tree of Life. Tang Zheng turned to stare at Xiaobai and asked, Xiaobai, do you not have the Tree of Life in your memories of Sky Beyond Sky? Xiaobai was not in a hurry to answer. Instead, he closed his eyes and searched for the information passed down by the imperial family. There was too much information and too mixed. He did not have time to completely sort it out. Therefore, he was not sure if there was any information about the Tree of Life in these memories. He could only sharpen his knife and search on the spot. Tang Zheng knew a little about it, so he did not disturb him and waited quietly for him. After a long time, Xiaobai suddenly opened his eyes. The look in his eyes was very strange. There was a mixture of joy and doubt. How is it? Tang Zheng hurriedly asked. The others also looked at Xiaobai curiously. Xiaobai said in a deep voice, I'm afraid that you won't believe me even if I tell you. But there's indeed no Tree of Life in Sky Beyond Sky. What? Tang Zheng's expression changed and he exclaimed, The Tree of Life is the foundation of the great wide world. How can Sky Beyond Sky not have it? The others also nodded. Clearly they could not understand this question. Xiaobai's mouth curled into an unfathomable smile. The great wide world doesn't have to have a Tree of Life. The Tree of Life is only unique to some great wide worlds. The Tree of Life is just a representation, and it will have different representations in different worlds. Tang Zheng had an idea and asked, Are you saying that the foundation of Sky Beyond Sky is something else, which is equivalent to the Tree of Life in the human world? Xiaobai nodded. Tang Zheng opened his mouth in shock. The others were also dumbfounded. They did not expect this truth. Tang Zheng recovered from his shock. He collected his thoughts and asked curiously, What's the foundation of Sky Beyond Sky? Xiaobai opened his mouth and softly spat out 2 words. When everyone heard this, their expressions changed greatly. Their expressions were very interesting. They never dreamed that the foundation of Sky Beyond Sky was this. The great wide world was really full of strange things. For the latest novel updates, please visit the website. Chapter 1690. Kuanpeng. Those were the 2 words that Xiaobai said. Although his voice was not loud, it was so loud that everyone was stunned. Not only Tang Zheng and the rest, but most of the people from the righteous path had seen the Kuanpeng before. They were shocked when they heard that the Kuanpeng was the foundation of the Outland, which was equivalent to the Tree of Life. Tang Zheng did not expect the Kuanpeng to have such an identity. After a while he regained his senses and asked, Why is the Kuanpeng the foundation of the Outland? Xiaobai shrugged and said, This is what the imperial family's memory told me. I don't know the reason. Tang Zheng revealed a look of disappointment. The old ancestor came back to his senses and said thoughtfully, Back then, the late emperor and empress favored the Kuanpeng a lot. Although the Kuanpeng didn't take any position, its status was extraordinary. Many people didn't understand the reason. Now, it seems that the late emperor knew that the Kuanpeng was the foundation of the Outland, so he could not be neglected. Red Moon was enlightened and said, I was still angry that the Kuanpeng betrayed the late emperor and followed Hao Tianwang. Now it seems that the Kuanpeng did not take a stand. The elder ancestor nodded in agreement. That makes sense. Tang Zheng remembered the reason why the Outland invaded the human world. They moved the cultivators to the Outland to repair the foundation of the Outland. In order to seize the Outland, Hao Tianwang damaged the foundation of the Outland during the war with the imperial family. The Outland was in danger, and was downgraded from a macroscopic world to a microcosm. Perhaps the Kuanpeng was injured during the war, so the foundation of the Outland was damaged. Hao Tianwang had no choice but to repair it. In other words, Hao Tianwang did not know that the Kuanpeng was the foundation of the Outland, but he must have found out later. But after careful consideration of this matter, he couldn't help but be shocked. The Kuanpeng had the divine power of giving someone a taste of their own medicine, but it was injured during the war. It showed how tragic and earth-shattering the war was. This also meant that the Kuanpeng's divine ability was not omnipotent. As long as one's strength reached a certain level, one could also break this divine ability. Since Kuanpeng is the foundation of Sky Beyond Sky, then naturally it can't always fall into the hands of Hao Tianwang. We must find a way to take it back. Tang Zheng said firmly. The others nodded as well. In the past, they did not know the importance of the Kunpeng, so they did not pay attention to it. But things were different now. Not to mention whether or not the Kunpeng could turn the wasteland into an oasis, just the fact that it was the foundation of the outland meant that it had to be in his hands. Xiaobai said worriedly. The Kunpeng doesn't listen to our orders. How can we take it back? Tang Zheng said with a smile. Kunpeng doesn't listen to our orders, but it doesn't necessarily listen to Hao Tianwang's orders. What do you mean? Didn't the Kunpeng carry Hao Tianwang's army to attack the Suicide Valley? If the Kunpeng really listened to Hao Tianwang's orders, then Hao Tianwang wouldn't have escaped with his tail between his legs. Because if the Kunpeng could reflect attacks, then Hao Tianwang would be in an invincible position. Why would he need to be afraid of our counterattack? In the past, Tang Zheng would not have thought of this, but ever since he knew the true identity of the Kunpeng, this point had suddenly become clear. When the others heard this, their eyes lit up, as if they had never thought of this before. If not for Tang Zheng's reminder, they probably would not have thought of it so quickly. Xiao Bai's eyes lit up, and he clicked his tongue in wonder. That makes sense. I'm afraid that Hao Tianwang cannot completely control the Kunpeng, which gives us an opportunity to take advantage of it. Tang Zheng nodded his head in relief. The others also revealed looks of joy, eager to give it a try, and said, Then what are we waiting for? Right, let's hurry up and snatch the Kunpeng back. I have a feeling that once we snatch the Kunpeng back, our chances of victory will be much higher. Everyone's gazes landed on Tang Zheng, waiting for his decision. Tang Zheng muttered to himself. Indeed, so we have to make a trip to the Imperial City. The Kunpeng was in the Imperial City, which was Hao Tianwang's base camp. It was like going deep into the tiger's den. Everyone's expressions also became serious. This was an extremely dangerous mission. If they were not careful, they could lose their lives. Everyone realized this, but no one retreated. Instead, they fought to be the first to do so. Yi Dingdang anxiously declared. I'm going to the Imperial City. I've never been to the Imperial City before. Only by going once will this trip not be in vain. Her tone was relaxed, as if she did not care about the danger at all. Wu and Lu Qingmei were not willing to fall behind, and rushed to say, I'll go too. Other than a few people from the righteous faction, the others quickly followed suit, unwilling to fall behind. Among the righteous faction's people, there were many sect leaders from the great sects. They were not familiar with Tang Zheng and the others, but when they saw how fearless they were, they could not help but turn pale. The Imperial City and Hao Tianwang are so terrifying, but this group of people are not afraid at all. They could not understand this kind of boldness and courage. These past few years, they had been hiding and keeping a respectful distance, afraid that Hao Tianwang would attack them. This group of people actually took the initiative to deliver themselves to them. Tang Zheng indifferently looked at the righteous faction, seeing through their thoughts, but he did not care and said, If so many people go, wouldn't that be too eye-catching? We cannot avoid a big battle this time. We are not going to go sightseeing. Pausing for a moment, his gaze fell on Yi Dingdang as he solemnly said, Wasn't the place we transmigrated to above the Imperial City? You've already seen the Imperial City. Why do you need to make another trip? Yi Dingdang was not convinced. But that was just a glance from afar. We did not go in. How could we appreciate its elegance? The Imperial City is not elegant. Tang Zheng waved his hand, completely cutting off Yi Dingdang's thoughts, and said, Tian Chanzi, you will stay in the Boorish lands. Xiaobai, the four symbols Azura, and I will go to the Imperial City. The others will stay in the Boorish lands. This is our base, this is our foundation, we cannot give it up. Tian Chanzi did not object. He had just returned to Kingsaman, and was also the new sect leader. He had to sort out the Kingsaman from top to bottom, and formulate a plan for future development, so he could not leave. The elder ancestor, Chiyeya, and the witch tribe obviously did not want to stay in the Boorish lands. They all wanted to charge and break through the enemy lines. If it was any other situation, Tang Zheng naturally would not go against their wishes, But this time it was really too dangerous. He did not have the confidence. How could he bear to let his subordinates take the risk? Although some people were unwilling, they could not refute Tang Zheng, and could only accept all the arrangements. When the news that they were going to enter the tiger's den spread, it caused quite a stir in the righteous faction. Everyone was worried, and a new problem arose spontaneously. Tang Zheng was carefully preparing to go to the imperial city, but Tian Chanzi and the other sect leaders came looking for him. Tang Zheng looked at the group of sect leaders in astonishment. Sect leaders, why are you looking for me? At this juncture, this group of people definitely came together for an important matter, which made them very puzzled. What exactly was it that made them gather so many people? To read the latest novel, please visit Chapter 1691. The few sect leaders looked at each other in dismay. Their faces filled with hesitation, as though they did not dare to say it directly. After a long while they recommended Heaven Monk and said, "Sect leader Heaven Monk, why don't you say it?" Tang Zheng looked at Tian Chanzi curiously. Tian Chanzi rolled his eyes speechlessly and said bluntly, "Leaders, since you can freely travel between the human world and the heavens beyond, when can you return to the human world?" Tang Zheng's heart trembled. He had actually overlooked such a crucial question. For the righteous path, they did not care about taking back the heavens beyond. Since there was hope of returning to the human world, they naturally cared more about this point. Pairs of burning eyes looked at Tang Zheng, waiting for his answer. Tang Zheng muttered, "Leaders, although we came from the human world, if we want to return to the human world, it is not an easy task." "Why?" The leaders' faces changed slightly, and someone asked. Tang Zheng already had a countermeasure, and said, "Because there are too many people in the righteous path. With my skills, there is no way to bring so many people back." Although the space of Sumeru heavens was huge, it was still another space. When passing through the space door, Sumeru heavens and the space door would have some kind of impact. This required Tang Zheng to use his skills to resolve this impact. This was what Tang Zheng learned the last time he passed through the space door. In the past, he thought that using Sumeru heavens to bring many people through the space door would be easy. But in the end, he found that he was wrong. The more people there were in Sumeru heavens, the more difficult it would be for him to pass through the space door. There were so many people in the righteous path. How could he bring all of them back to the human world? If he brought them back in batches, it would cause unfairness and dissatisfaction, so he might as well let them all stay in the heavens beyond. The situation in the human world was already different from hundreds of years ago. This group of righteous path faced the problem of life and death in the heavens beyond. But if they returned to the human world, they would be absolute powerhouses. He could not imagine what kind of problems the human world would face at that time. The key point was that he did not have the energy to deal with this problem, so he could only delay it for now. In addition, if he wanted to take back the heavens beyond heaven, he would need the help of this group of righteous path. In this process, he could clearly see who was truly trustworthy. Regardless of whether it was out of selfishness or righteousness, Tang Zheng could not agree to the righteous path so quickly. He pondered for a while and said awkwardly, "Passing through the space gate is not an easy task. I don't have the ability to bring everyone back to the human world for the time being." As soon as he said that, the sect leaders' expressions changed. One of them said, "The outer sky is so dangerous. How can we not leave as soon as possible?" In the past, they had no hope of leaving. Now that they had a glimmer of hope, how could they be willing to stay in heavens beyond? Tang Zheng looked at everyone with a scorching gaze. "I'm not afraid even if I stay in the realm beyond heaven with all of you, so what do you have to be afraid of? Moreover, there is a celestial chest set up in the wildlands. As long as you don't leave the wildlands, you will be safe." All the sect leaders cursed in their hearts. What's so great about heavenly chess? They couldn't tell at all. As for your strength, of course they weren't worried. "We weren't as powerful as you." However, they could only swallow these words in their hearts. They didn't dare to say it out loud. They said resentfully, "We've been away from the human world for too long. Everyone misses home too much." Tang Zheng laughed coldly. This excuse was too old-fashioned. There was nothing new about it. It was just fooling a 3-year-old child. Tian Chanzi also understood the thoughts of these sect leaders. He was quite angry. They had just joined Tang Zheng's side, and they were already making demands. Were they really that afraid of death? I, Tian Chanzi, have died once. I'm not afraid of death. Tian Chanzi stepped forward bravely and said passionately, "At least there is one righteous person who hasn't left heavens beyond heaven. Then I will not leave heavens beyond heaven for one day. Now all the sect leaders should be satisfied, right?" All the sect leaders looked at Tian Chanzi in astonishment. They didn't expect him to stand up so boldly. These bold words made them flabbergasted. Tian Chanzi's eyes were firm. He didn't allow anyone to question him. "You're exaggerating. Tian Chanzi is a noble sect leader. How can he be the last to leave heavens beyond heaven?" Someone hurriedly tried to smooth things over. Tian Chanzi didn't appreciate it at all. He stubbornly said, "I've already said my piece. Everyone just wait and see." Tang Zheng looked at Tian Chanzi gratefully. This action resolved everything. Everyone knew that Tian Chanzi and Tang Zheng had a close relationship. He was willing to be the last to leave heavens beyond heaven. How could the others be dissatisfied? Even if there were complaints, they were all blocked. All the sect leaders looked at each other and secretly shook their heads. They knew that there was no reason to continue speaking. They all said goodbye to Tang Zheng and left resentfully. Tian Chanzi looked at their departing figures. His expression became complicated. He sighed and said, "This group of short-sighted people. How can the righteous path become like this today?" Tang Zheng wasn't surprised. The special environment of heavens beyond heaven had caused all of this. They did everything for survival, so naturally, they would become much more selfish. He said, "Don't worry. Their hopes are on me, so they have to listen to my orders. I'm worried that when they return to the human world in the future, your identity as the alliance leader may not be able to command them. At that time, they will be in a state of disunity. It's hard to predict what will happen." Tian Chanzi shook his head and sighed. Tang Zheng wasn't worried. He smiled faintly and said, "When they return to the human world, the martial artists in Dianan will be strong enough. Moreover, I will set up as many heavens chess pieces as possible. If they want to do anything wrong, they can only lift a stone and smash it on their own feet." Tian Chanzi nodded secretly and said, "Since you have a countermeasure, I won't say more." This episode didn't affect the established plan. The day of departure was coming. These few days, everyone was carefully preparing, conserving their energy, and adjusting their condition to the best. Even if there was a fierce battle, they were not afraid at all. At the edge of the barbarian land, several leaders of the righteous path, Yi Dingdang, the three girls, the great ancestor, and the witch tribe stood in front of Tang Zheng and the others. They were reluctant to part and waved goodbye. The three girls kept reminding Tang Zheng to be careful and return safely. Tang Zheng felt their intentions and was full of pride. He patted his chest to reassure them. The great ancestor and the others looked at Xiaobai worriedly. Although Xiaobai's cultivation was already at the 8th grade of the Mahayana realm, which was the highest among everyone, the great ancestor couldn't help but worry. After all, the imperial city was a tiger's den. It was the enemy's base camp. It was hard to predict what kind of changes and dangers would happen. The red lunar beast also joined the great ancestor's team. They tried their best to persuade Xiaobai to change his mind and bring them along to take care of him. Xiaobai turned his head and glanced at Tang Zheng. He didn't change his mind at all. The great ancestor and the red lunar beast's last efforts were in vain. "All right, then let's go. Everyone, wait for our triumphant return with the Kuanpeng." Tang Zheng waved his hand and said proudly. Chapter 1692. In the sky above the imperial city, a white cloud floated over and blended in with the other clouds. The night was like water, and the somersault cloud's movements were inconspicuous. Tang Zheng and Xiaobai felt the biting cold night wind and looked into the distance, sizing up the imperial city. Under the curtain of night, the imperial city lit up with lights, like the stars in the sky. It was no longer as noisy as it was during the day. In an instant, it regained its peace, as if someone had pressed the mute button. They deliberately waited until the night to act, because sneaking into the imperial city at night was the least likely way to be discovered. Master, where do you think Hao Tianwang hid the Kunpeng's huge body? Xiaobai was puzzled and asked curiously. The last time they sneaked into the imperial city, they did not see the Kunpeng, so they were very curious about its hiding place. How did your imperial family place the Kunpeng? Tang Zheng asked casually. In the memory I inherited, there is no special information about the Kunpeng. It is completely free. It can go anywhere it wants. Tang Zheng smiled and said, Hao Tianwang would not raise the Kunpeng like this. Since he knows the importance of the Kunpeng, he would naturally hold it firmly in his hands. The imperial city is so big, then where are we going to find the Kunpeng? Xiaobai asked worriedly. Tang Zheng's gaze was deep. There were only 4 people in this trip. Other than him and Xiaobai, the 4 symbols and Azura were temporarily staying in Sumeru world. They were alone and could not make any mistakes. Tang Zheng's gaze fell on the patrolling guards in the imperial city and said thoughtfully, Let's capture someone and ask. Xiaobai immediately understood Tang Zheng's thoughts and volunteered. I'll do it. The 2 of them pressed down on the cloud and quietly landed. During the day, the imperial city was heavily guarded, hundreds of times more than when they sneaked in. Obviously, after the Battle of the Suicide Valley, Hao Tianwang was jittery, afraid that the enemy would sneak into the imperial city again. But how could such a huge city wall not have any loopholes? How could it be absolutely safe? Especially in front of this kind of Xiuzha who came and went. The city walls and city guards could become decorations. At this moment, Tang Zheng and Xiaobai had sneaked into the imperial city without anyone noticing. However, when they were at the imperial city gate, the 2 of them saw several corpses that were hung high up on the city gate for public display. The 2 of them had witnessed the entire process during the day. The city guards had caught a few suspicious people and declared them to be spies. Then they were immediately hung on the city gates and tortured to death. The 2 of them were really shocked by this scene. They didn't expect Hao Tianwang to be so crazy as to use this kind of torture in front of their own home, indiscriminately taking people's lives. As for spies and enemies, that was nonsense. Tang Zheng had never sent anyone to the imperial city, so how could there be any spies? This was completely because Hao Tianwang had a guilty conscience and became a frightened bird, which was why he committed such a bloody crime. At that time, Xiaobai was gnashing his teeth in hatred. These people were his people, but they were ruled by Hao Tianwang's tyranny. He understood the weight of the responsibility on his shoulders even more. Not only did he want to take back the glory and honor that belonged to the imperial family, he also wanted to save his own people from the fire and water. After the 2 of them sneaked into the imperial city, Xiaobai still couldn't help but look at the city gate, and said in a low voice, Master, I will definitely make Hao Tianwang pay the price. If you want to destroy them, you have to make them crazy first. This is Hao Tianwang's last carnival. The more he does this, the more unpopular he will be. Water can carry a boat, but it can also capsize a boat. If he loses the hearts of the people, how far can he go? Tang Zheng sneered and said disdainfully. Xiaobai was confused and didn't completely understand Tang Zheng's meaning. Tang Zheng looked at him and said earnestly, In the future, when you become the king of sky beyond sky, you must treat your own people well. Xiaobai patted his chest and said with a matter-of-fact expression, I am not a thug like Hao Tianwang. Naturally, I will treat my own people well. After saying this, Xiaobai's ears trembled. He raised a finger and said in a low voice, Master, the city guards are coming. The imperial city was heavily guarded, and the city guards had increased the intensity of their patrols. Therefore, they encountered the city guards as soon as they entered. Xiaobai said eagerly, Master, wait here. I will catch them for questioning. Xiaobai didn't give Tang Zheng a chance to object. In a flash, he disappeared into the night. There wasn't any big movement. After a while, Xiaobai came back with an enemy. Master, this is their leader, a city guard. He must know a lot of information. Xiaobai clapped his hands and said. The city guard looked at Tang Zheng in panic. He wanted to shout loudly, but he couldn't say a word. It was as if his throat was blocked by something. Don't waste your energy. Xiaobai patted the city guard's shoulder. If you move again, you will be like your subordinates and die immediately." The city guard heard this and became obedient. He looked at the two people in horror. His heart was shocked. These two people were really bold. The imperial city was heavily guarded, but they still dared to sneak in. "I ask you, where is the Kuanpeng?" Time was tight, so Tang Zheng asked directly. The city guard thought that the other side was going to ask about something, but it was actually about the Kuanpeng. He couldn't help but open his eyes wide, not understanding what was going on. Xiao Bai patted his body and removed the restriction spell. He urged, "What are you standing there for? Hurry up and answer. Don't play any tricks. You know how powerful I am." The city guard trembled and said with a bitter face, "I also don't know." Xiao Bai's face hardened and said, "You dare to play tricks? You don't want to say it? Then you will have a taste of it." "Wait a minute." Xiao Bai was about to make a move when Tang Zheng hurriedly stopped him. "I ask you, the Kuanpeng is so big. It is not inferior to the imperial city. Once it comes back, how can it disappear from under your eyes? How can you not know where it went? The Kuanpeng can be big or small. Once it returns to the imperial city, it will become small. How can people like us know where it went?" The city guard said with a bitter face. "The Kuanpeng can be big or small." Tang Zheng frowned suspiciously. The two times he saw the Kuanpeng, he only saw its huge body. He didn't think that it could become small. Tang Zheng turned his head to look at Xiao Bai and asked, "Is it like this in your memory?" Xiao Bai shook his head firmly. "Of course not. In my memory, the Kuanpeng is very big. How can it become small?" Master. One look and you can tell that he is talking nonsense. Why don't you just use the soul-searching technique? He can't hide any secrets." Xiao Bai's suggestion made Tang Zheng's head move. At this crucial moment, he couldn't make any mistakes. It seemed that he could only use the soul-searching technique. You can only blame yourself for listening to Hao Tianwang. Also, you usually do too many evil things. Tang Zheng muttered in his heart. His big hand grabbed the city guard envoy's head, and a message was transmitted to his mind. "Master, how is it?" Seeing him let go of his hand, Xiao Bai impatiently asked. "He is not lying." Tang Zheng's face turned cold as he suspiciously said, "My new book Immortal Cultivation Master on campus has been released. It is even more interesting. Please support it. If you can't find the new book, please follow the official WeChat account, Tang Xiao. To read the latest novel, please visit the website." Chapter 1693. Xiao Bai looked at Tang Zheng in disbelief and asked, "He's not lying? How is that possible?" In Xiao Bai's memory, the Kuanpeng could not freely change its size, so it was hard to accept this reality. Tang Zheng thought about it and said, "Maybe something happened later on that caused the Kuanpeng to change. Is there really such a possibility?" Xiao Bai was skeptical. Tang Zheng nodded with certainty. The Kuanpeng is the foundation of the outer sky. Like the tree of life, it has many unpredictable characteristics, so we can't rule out this possibility. Xiao Bai pouted resentfully and said, "All right. If the Kuanpeng becomes smaller, the target will be smaller. It can be anywhere, so how are we going to find it?" Tang Zheng looked up at the city in the sky. Last time, they could reach the city in the sky from the imperial graveyard, but this time, they might not be able to do the same. Hao Tianwang would definitely investigate the previous invasion thoroughly, but it was unknown whether he would find the transportation formation, so it was better to be careful. After listening to Tang Zheng's analysis, Xiao Bai felt that it was very reasonable, but now, how to find the Kuanpeng was the most important thing. Tang Zheng stared at the city in the sky in the distance. The imperial city was polarized and had a strict hierarchy. The people who lived in the city in the sky were the real privileged class of the outer sky. The lives of the ordinary people were not happy. They were completely oppressed, but the power of the privileged class was too strong, so the ordinary people could not resist at all. Resistance meant death. Just like those corpses that were hung on the city gate for public display. There was no conclusive evidence at all, so the city guards could kill them if they wanted to. This was a world of difference from when the imperial family ruled the outer sky. At that time, the people lived and worked. How could it be so miserable? Xiaobai also looked at the city in the sky and said, Master, if we can't find the Kuan Peng, why don't we take the initiative to attack and lure the snake out of its hole? Tang Zheng looked at Xiaobai approvingly and said, Smart. The two of them had the same thought. They couldn't keep wasting time like this. After all, there were only the two of them. They were a small target and had high mobility. If they took the initiative to attack, they would have a way to escape. Unless Heavenly Monarch Hao personally intervened, it would not be easy to keep the two of them at the 7th and 8th grade of the Mahayana realm. The two hit it off immediately, and Tang Jing said, Xiaobai, do you know what's supporting Sky City? Why can it float in the air? Sky City is a floating city. As for why it can float, there's nothing special about it. It's just like the floating mountains we saw before. There are many floating mountains in outer heaven, and Sky City is just one of them. Tang Zheng was suddenly enlightened. He had thought that Sky City was supported by some kind of energy. Where is that light pillar? In addition to the function of the teleportation array, the pillar of light can also stabilize Sky City and prevent it from floating freely. The other mountains are floating indefinitely unless they are fixed by some special magic. Sky City is a symbol of Hao Tianwang's power. His rule is so cruel that it has long been angry, but everyone just doesn't dare to say anything. If Sky City is destroyed or damaged, Hao Tianwang's authority will definitely be greatly challenged and weakened, which is a good thing for us. Tang Zheng thought. This time, when he came to the Imperial City, Tang Zheng made a special trip to investigate the specific situation of Outer Heaven. He found that the power and resources of Outer Heaven were all concentrated in the Imperial City and Sky City. The other places were relatively barren, and ordinary people lived in an abyss of suffering. If he had just taken a quick look, he wouldn't have discovered this. This discovery made him feel like he had found a treasure, and he had new thoughts and gains. It turned out that Hao Tianwang's rule over Outer Heaven was not iron. There had been an undercurrent surging for a long time, and he was just waiting for an opportunity to break through this window paper. Xiaobai was very much in favor of Tang Zheng's plan. Although Sky City was magnificent, in Xiaobai's opinion, there was a lot of corruption hidden in it, and it was better to destroy it. The two of them made up their minds and quietly sneaked toward Sky City. Along the way, there was a guard every 5 steps, and a sentry every 3 steps. The closer they got to Sky City, the tighter the security became, and there was a suffocating sense of oppression. You're so scared because you have a guilty conscience. Xiaobai lowered his voice and said with gritted teeth. Although the security was tight, the cultivation of these people was far inferior to the two of them. Therefore, they successfully sneaked to the bottom of Sky City, not far from the teleportation light pillar. This light pillar is protected by a formation, so it won't be so easy to destroy it. Xiaobai reminded. Formation? I know a little about it. Tang Zheng was full of confidence. If it was said that his understanding of formations before was only at the beginner level, ever since he completely comprehended heavenly chess, he actually had a deeper understanding of formations by analogy. This understanding was not something that ordinary people could compare to. His current level of formations could be said to be at the Grandmaster level. It was just that he rarely used formations, so he did not show it. Heavenly chess and formations had many similarities. Heavenly chess was more complicated than formations. Heavenly chess was the principle that if one method was understood, all methods would be understood. Tang Zheng used his divine sense, and his divine sense wandered. Without anyone noticing, he wandered to the light pillar. His divine sense spread underground, and soon found some clues. This was indeed a large formation. The formation was connected to the entire Imperial City, and it was powered by the Imperial City's chi channels. The formation was powerful, and its defensive power was extremely strong. It could firmly protect the light pillar. Based on this, Hao Tianwang could sit back and relax. He was not worried about the light pillar at all. This was a formation that had been reinforced by generations of imperial family. It should have been unbreakable. If they met an ordinary cultivator, they could forget about breaking the formation without anyone noticing. Unfortunately, they met Tang Zheng. He was proficient in heavenly chess, and already had a very deep foundation in formations. Furthermore, he had many unique insights and perspectives that others could not compare to. Tang Zheng carefully studied this large formation, and indeed spent a lot of energy. Finally, the corners of his mouth hooked up into a smile, and he thought to himself, I finally found the trick. Watch me break the formation. His divine sense cut into the key point of the formation, and a slight power quietly changed. The city guards guarding around the light pillar did not notice it at all. The formation was broken, and the defensive power of the formation was crumbling bit by bit. Tang Zheng withdrew his divine sense, and glanced at Xiaobai, who had an anxious look on his face, and said, It's a success. The formation has been broken. In just a while, this formation will completely disintegrate without anyone noticing. Then we can move. Xiaobai's eyes were full of extraordinary splendor, and he was a little in disbelief. After all, that large formation was so powerful that he was completely helpless. But Tang Zheng had done it in 3 to 5 minutes. This was too heaven-defying. Xiaobai took a deep breath, calming the stormy waves in his heart, and said, Then let's start now. We'll destroy this light pillar and shake Sky City's foundation. Both of their eyes erupted with fanaticism, and they attacked at the same time. Chapter 1694. Tang Zheng and Xiaobai gathered their energy, and the hidden mystic sword and the bloodthirsty scepter flew out together. The two rays of light flew towards the light pillar in front of everyone's eyes. Yet these two attacks were not concealed at all. Even if they were so powerful, they could not be concealed. The city guards were shocked. They did not expect that the core area of the imperial city would be attacked. They hurriedly shouted and tried to stop the two attacks. However, these two attacks were so powerful that they were simply not something they could intercept. Thus, the first city guard to stop them turned into a wisp of green smoke and died on the spot. The others were stunned. They did not expect this wave of attack to be so powerful. Boom! Boom! The two loud sounds shook the sky and the earth. The light pillar trembled violently. All the city guards swayed, and could not stand steadily. However, this was far less than the shock in their hearts. They had never seen anyone attack the light pillar. Because word of mouth, everyone knew that the light pillar was unimaginably powerful. Moreover, there was a defensive array around the light pillar. Why did the defensive array not activate this time, and let the light pillar withstand this wave of attack? They could not figure it out. They were completely stunned by this scene. Whoosh! The hidden mystic sword and the bloodthirsty scepter flew back to their respective owners. Before the city guards could react, they had already disappeared from their sight. There was no trace of them at all. Hurry up and catch the enemy. A city guard finally reacted and screamed hysterically. The other city guards woke up from their daze and prepared to search for the enemy. However, before they could do anything, someone pointed at the light pillar and shouted in shock, Look! The city guards subconsciously stopped and stared at the light pillar. A crack appeared on the light pillar and quickly spread. After a while there were many cracks on the light pillar. They were densely packed and looked like they were going to spread to the entire light pillar. Everyone was shocked and did not know what to do. They had never encountered such a situation before. Tang Zheng and Xiaobai hid in the dark and saw this scene. They looked at each other and smiled. They knew that they had achieved their goal. The light pillar was destroyed, and the city in the sky would be on the verge of collapse. The first step of luring the snake out of its hole is complete. Once the chaos starts, we'll be able to fish in troubled waters. Back in the city in the sky, night had fallen and the imperial city was silent. However, the city in the sky was brightly lit with music, forming a sharp contrast with the imperial city below. Countless people were enjoying themselves. That was the normal state of the Sky Castle. Even though Hao Tianwang had issued an order to guard against the enemy, the Sky Castle was still the same. With two loud booms, Sky City shook violently. All the people who were still enjoying themselves screamed in horror. The shaking did not last for too long. When it finally calmed down, everyone was shocked and furious. The city in the sky had always been calm and tranquil. There was not even a trace of shaking, so how could it be like the mountains were shaking and the earth was quaking? Something must have happened. Many people ran out of their houses and looked at each other in confusion. None of them knew what was going on. In the most magnificent palace in the center of the city in the sky, Hao Tianwang and King Wuling were talking when they suddenly shook violently, shocking both father and son. The older, the wiser. Heavenly King Hao immediately reacted and shouted, "The enemy is here!" Whoosh! He had already turned into a gust of wind and flew out of the palace. King Wuling's reaction was not slow either, and he quickly chased after him. Soaring into the air, the two of them had a panoramic view of the city in the sky. Creak, creak. A burst of ear-piercing and strange sounds suddenly rang out. Hao Tianwang's ears twitched and he said sternly, "Damn it, I didn't go to find them, but they came to die first." Ever since the failure of the Suicide Valley, Hao Tianwang had suffered a big blow. He was full of confidence in an operation, but in the end it ended in failure. He could not accept this reality no matter what. He thought hard, and in the past few days he had finally found a flaw. He gradually realized that he had misjudged the situation. Although Xiao Bai had inherited the 72 transformations, his strength was probably not as powerful as he had imagined. The 72 transformations were so powerful that it would definitely take time to comprehend them safely. How could it be completely comprehended in such a short time? At that time, Hao Tianwang was intimidated by Xiao Bai's aura, so he did not think of this in time. The more he thought about it, the more he felt that it was possible. When he thought about how he had been played by Xiao Bai, his anger erupted like a volcano, and he could not restrain his anger. He was preparing to make a comeback and completely annihilate this group of enemies, but he did not expect the other party to be so daring as to restrain him first. "You don't know how to live. This time, I'll let you leave behind as many lives as you want." Hao Tianwang was full of confidence, but when he heard the creaking sounds that were getting more and more frequent, his expression suddenly changed, his eyelids twitched, and he realized something. They destroyed the pillar of light. Hao Tianwang said, hitting the nail on the head. King Wuling's eyes widened in disbelief, and he cried out in alarm. "The pillar of light is protected by an array formation. How could it be destroyed?" Hao Tianwang did not answer, but this was the truth, and he could not refute it. Both father and son realized how fierce the other party was. They had actually destroyed the pillar of light without anyone noticing, which was destroying the foundation of Sky City. "Father, what do we do now?" King Wuling anxiously asked. "I'll go meet them and see who it is this time, so daring and unafraid of death," Hao Tianwang said without hesitation. Hao Tianwang was very clear about his son's cultivation compared to the enemy. Although he surpassed most of them, there was still a gap between him and Tang Zheng and Xiao Bai. If he rushed down rashly, what if he fell into the enemy's trap? He did not want anything to happen to his son. In addition, we must stabilize Sky City. Sky City has stood for tens of thousands of years, and cannot be destroyed in our hands. Once Sky City breaks away from the Imperial City, it will be a serious blow to our dignity, Hao Tianwang exhorted. Hao Tianwang's eyes were like torches, and he saw the key point at a glance. After such a reminder, King Wuling also came to a realization. He gritted his teeth and said, "The enemy's intentions are really sinister. Let the Kuan ping out and let it stabilize Sky City. At this time, we can only rely on its power to do this." Hao Tianwang dropped these words, and with a whoosh he disappeared in front of King Wuling and swooped down towards the Imperial City. Along the way, he clearly saw the spiderweb-like cracks on the pillar of light, and his expression became colder and more gloomy. He knew that the pillar of light was in imminent danger, but he had no choice but to rely on the Kuanping's divine power. His goal was to find the enemy and then destroy them. His eyes were like lightning, looking down from above, looking for suspicious people in the Imperial City. Chapter 1695. Pairs of eyes were focused on the light pillar, watching the crumbling Sky City. Screams sounded one after another, and most people did not understand what was going on. Tang Zheng and Xiao Bai hid in the dark and watched all this silently. Their eyes were fixed on Hao Tianwang, who was diving down rapidly in midair. The two of them were not in a hurry to rush out. Instead, they completely restrained their aura and deliberately hid. Their goal was Kuan-prung, not to get into a fierce battle with Hao Tianwang. Moreover, this was Hao Tianwang's territory, and it was easy to be surrounded. Although they were bold, they did not dare to take this risk. Hao Tianwang glanced around and did not find a suspicious target, so he could not help but be very angry. He could conclude that the target was in the imperial city, but it was hidden so deep that even he could not detect it. Looking at the panicked crowd running around the streets of the imperial city, Hao Tianwang's anger erupted like a volcano. "Come out!" He roared and slapped the ground with both hands. A biting cold wind spurted out from his palms, blowing a tornado and sweeping the imperial city below. Crash! A large number of buildings were swept up by the tornado and shattered. Many people found it difficult to escape from this tornado. They screamed as they flew into the air, and then fell down heavily. Bang! 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 People seemed to be falling from the sky. Although these people were all cultivators and had cultivation, after experiencing this tornado, their cultivation was destroyed and they did not have the strength to resist falling from the sky. After a while, there were many corpses on the messy ground. Suddenly, the people in the imperial city were horrified. Although the people who lived in the imperial city were of high status, those who really had no status were not even qualified to live in the imperial city, and could only live in places far away from the imperial city. Hao Tianwang did not put these people with status in his eyes. If it were other people, he would not put them in his eyes. Tang Zheng and Xiaobai did not suffer, but the two of them were stunned. They did not expect Hao Tianwang to be so cruel that he did not even spare his own people. Although the two of them had hidden themselves well, if they allowed Hao Tianwang to continue running amok, they would eventually be exposed. If they were ordinary citizens, Xiaobai, as a member of the imperial family, would definitely not let innocent people get involved. However, since these people lived in the center of the imperial city and were sincerely loyal to Hao Tianwang, then he could not save them. If Hao Tianwang does this, he will definitely lose a lot of people's support. The heavens are really helping me, Tang Zheng thought to himself. When Hao Tianwang saw that it didn't work, he became even angrier. He flipped his palm and slammed it in another direction. As the palm fell, an ice palm rapidly condensed and grew in midair. Not long after, the ice palm turned into a giant palm. Boom! After a loud bang, the ice palm slammed into the ground. As for the buildings on the ground, they were completely smashed into powder. As for the people, they completely disappeared along with the buildings. How could the others not understand the situation? If they stayed around the light pillar, they would definitely lose their lives. Not only the residents, but even the city guards fled out of the city desperately, only to get farther and farther away from the light pillar. Tang Zheng and Xiaobai watched in horror. Hao Tianwang's cruel means were rarely seen in their lives. If you want to destroy it, you must first make it crazy. Hao Tianwang is really crazy. Tang Zheng sighed secretly. Xiaobai exchanged glances with him, as if to say that they were about to be attacked. Tang Zheng signaled him to stay calm, and continued to look up at the sky city. Crack! With a loud crack, the light pillar broke inch by inch and fell from the sky. However, before it fell to the ground, it turned into rays of light and dissipated. The light pillar was destroyed. Not only was Tang Zheng and Little White unable to take their eyes off this scene, all the other people in the imperial city were dumbstruck as well. They never thought that they would see this scene in their lives. The light pillar was destroyed. What about the sky city? Wasn't Hao Tianwang invincible? How could this happen right under his nose? Many people had doubts in their hearts. Hao Tianwang's high-handed policies had been implemented over the years, and no one dared to resist because they were afraid of Hao Tianwang and King Wuling. It seemed that they were not invincible. Such a big thing happened right under his nose, but Heavenly King Hao could do nothing about it. He could only vent his anger on them. Everyone was angry, but did not dare to say anything. Even many people who were in awe of Hao Tianwang and King Wuling gradually lost their respect. The pillar of light disappeared, and Sky City was like a hydrogen balloon, rising slowly, as if it was going to soar into the sky above the 9 heavens. Wow! There were exclamations in the imperial city. Hao Tianwang also turned his head to look at the Sky City in the distance, and his face was extremely gloomy. What was King Wuling doing? How could he sit and watch all of this happen? But at this critical moment he could only choose to believe in his son. So he turned his head again, aimed at the imperial city, and said, "Go to hell." He slammed his palms down. This time, there were no ice palms, but a cold wind blew. Wherever it passed, the ice and snow, buildings and people turned into ice, and with a bang, they all shattered. There was no exception. That terrifying chill made people feel as if their souls were about to fly away. Seeing that the cold air was getting closer and closer, Xiaobai looked anxiously at Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng stared at the Sky City indifferent. Xiaobai had no choice but to wait quietly, but he was also ready. Suddenly, Tang Zheng's eyes lit up. Although it was night and he was far away, he still saw some clues. A huge figure appeared out of nowhere, holding up the Sky City. Yes, although the Sky City was incomparably huge, this figure was even bigger. It was like a boundless black cloud, covering the sky above the Imperial City, blocking the stars in the sky above the 9 heavens. The Sky City stopped flying high in the sky. "Master, be careful." Xiaobai stood in front of Tang Zheng and shouted in a low voice. The cold air was already in front of them. "Found the Kuanpeng." Tang Zheng was overjoyed. As they expected, the Kuanpeng really appeared, but they didn't expect it to appear in such a situation. Xiaobai didn't care about the Kuanpeng, and used the bloodthirsty scepter to draw a circle around them. With a bang, a raging fire rose from the ground, surrounded the two of them, and blocked the terrifying cold air. In midair, Hao Tianwang's pupils shrank, and the raging fire in his eyes finally found a place to vent. He roared, "I finally found you, Dai." Whoosh! A cold palm slapped towards the two of them. Before the cold palm arrived, the circle of flames had already been extinguished by the cold air. Tang Zheng didn't pay attention to Hao Tianwang's attack at all. Instead, he stared at the Kuanpeng in the sky without blinking. He tiptoed and soared into the sky, flying directly towards the Kuanpeng. Xiaobai's speed wasn't inferior either. With the bloodthirsty scepter in his hand, he attacked Hao Tianwang. Countless streaks of blood shot out from the scepter, directly towards Hao Tianwang. Chapter 1696. Xiaobai blocked Hao Tianwang, and Tang Zheng flew straight to the Sky City, heading straight for the target. That huge body had already occupied half of the sky, and Tang Zheng also saw the Kuanpeng's intention clearly. It turned out to be carrying the Sky City. When its body came into contact with the Sky City, it was as if there was an invisible attractive force, firmly attracting each other. The Sky City no longer flew high into the sky. Many people in the Sky City were frightened. Although these people were all cultivators, they were not powerless. However, they had been enjoying themselves for too long and had no willpower to fight at all. Once they encountered a change, they panicked and were out of their wits. King Wuling looked at this group of people, his eyes spitting fire, and he wanted to kill them directly. However, these were his people, and they were also the influential class of the heavens beyond heaven. How could he kill them just because he wanted to? He stood in the air and roared, "Don't panic. Everyone listen to me, the enemy is attacking. Everyone cheer up and catch the enemy." King Wuling's appearance stabilized the hearts of the people, and the screams gradually weakened. Pairs of eyes firmly locked onto King Wuling. King Wuling knew that he had to take the lead to let this group of people who were content to enjoy themselves do something serious. He was about to act when suddenly, he heard the sound of fierce fighting coming from below. He felt a chill in his heart, knowing that the enemy had appeared. He looked around and suddenly realized that the Sky City was the foundation, and he could not panic. Naturally, his father Hao Tianwang would take care of the Imperial City, so he did not need to worry. Thus he said loudly, "Everyone listen to me, take your positions and guard your posts and homes. Anyone who invades, kill without mercy. Kill without mercy." A deafening roar echoed in the Sky City. However, this was not the influential class, but the Imperial Guards who guarded the Sky City. They were King Wuling's trusted subordinates. Ever since Hao Tianwang had faked his death, King Wuling had spent a huge sum of money to reorganize the Imperial Guards. This was the core of his power. The Imperial Guards were all elites chosen from the Outland. They had undergone extremely hard training and were absolutely loyal to King Wuling. Their loyalty was even greater than that of Hao Tianwang. If they had to choose between King Wuling and Hao Tianwang, they would choose King Wuling without hesitation. The momentum of the Imperial Guards was so great that the other nobles gradually calmed down. They all showed off and shouted, as if they were going to catch the enemy. It was as if it was as simple as going to the Imperial City or hunting outside. This was completely different from when they were scared to the point where their legs turned to jelly. King Wuling did not stop them, and allowed them to rush to the edge of Sky City eagerly, as if they could immediately start a massacre. However, they did not wait for the attack that they expected. Only the sound of fierce battle came from the Imperial City. King Wuling was puzzled. There seemed to be something fishy, but he could not figure it out at the moment. He did not know that below Sky City, after the Kuanpeng carried Sky City, Tangjung also flew to the front of the Kuanpeng. The Kuanpeng could not take the initiative to attack, and could only passively counterattack. Tangjung did not want to attack the Kuanpeng. He stopped in the air in front of the Kuanpeng and carefully observed it. However, the Kuanpeng was like a huge balloon. He could not see its eyes at all. Naturally, there was no way to communicate with it. However, this could not go on. He had to find a way to take the Kuanpeng away. Tangjung had an idea. The Kuanpeng was very mysterious. Although it could not speak, it definitely had its own consciousness. Therefore, he tried to communicate with it through divine sense. Perhaps there would be an unexpected surprise. He believed that the Kuanpeng could communicate. Otherwise, how could Hao Tianwang and King Wuling order it to move? If you can communicate, then I can too. Tangjung was very confident. He extended his divine sense and tried to communicate with the Kuanpeng. However, when the divine sense reached the surface of the Kuanpeng's body, a rebounding force bounced the divine sense back. Then, wouldn't there be no way to communicate? If the divine sense could not communicate, then he could only snatch it by force. Tangjung's expression turned cold. He stretched out his hand and placed it on the Kuanpeng's body. He tried to use Sumeru World to keep the Kuanpeng. Although the Kuanpeng was huge, Sumeru World was not small either. Naturally, it could be contained. Even if the Kuanpeng was unwilling, it was not up to it. He would take it away first and then communicate with it slowly. When his hand was placed on the Kuanpeng's body, his brain rumbled as if a huge amount of energy rushed in. A voice suddenly sounded in his mind. "What are you doing?" Tangjung was shocked. A voice actually appeared in his mind. Moreover, he had no way to resist all of this. Everything happened too quickly, but Tangjung calmed down quickly and asked, "Who are you?" "I am the Kuanpeng." Kuanpeng. Tangjung was shocked. He was suffering from not being able to communicate with the Kuanpeng. He did not expect to communicate like this. He looked at his hand that was placed on the Kuanpeng's body, and suddenly realized that it required physical contact to communicate with the divine sense. "Kuanpeng, quickly shrink and leave this place with me." Tangjung went straight to the point. "Who are you? Why should I go with you?" the Kuanpeng asked. "Kuanpeng, you are the foundation of sky beyond sky. You have a great connection with the royal family. Hao Tianwang and King Wuling are both enemies of the royal family. They are sinners of sky beyond sky. How can you be with them?" Tangjung said straightforwardly. "Royal family? I seem to have heard of it somewhere. It feels so familiar," the Kuanpeng said doubtfully. Tangjung moved and asked, "Don't you remember the royal family?" "I don't remember. I don't know why, but I lost a part of my memory. Could it be that tens of thousands of years ago, the internal strife between Hao Tianwang and the royal family caused the Kuanpeng to be damaged, and then it lost its memory?" Tangjung felt that this was very possible. This could explain why the Kuanpeng had been following the royal family, and then followed Hao Tianwang. Others thought that the Kuanpeng had betrayed the royal family. In fact, it had lost its memory and did not know its mission. It did not know its relationship with the royal family. This gave Hao Tianwang an opportunity. Later, the righteous faction and the demon clan came to Sky Beyond Sky. Hao Tianwang used them to repair the damaged foundation of Sky Beyond Sky. The Kuanpeng was related to Sky Beyond Sky, and was naturally a beneficiary. When Sky Beyond Sky was stabilized, the Kuan Peng recovered, and then became a member of King Wuling's camp. If the Kuan Peng regained its memory, it would definitely break with Hao Tianwang. It would be easy to take it away. However, the reality was that the Kuan Peng had lost its memory. It was not easy to find its memory. Moreover, at this critical moment, there was no time to do all this. Thus, Tang Zheng made a prompt decision and said, Kuan Peng, do you want to find your lost memory? Then come with me. I will help you find your memory. The Kuan Peng could not be defeated by force. He could only use his wits. The Kuan Peng was not stupid. It refused directly and said, No, I still have to help them carry Sky City. Chapter 1697. After hearing Kuan Peng's words, Tang Zheng rolled his eyes. How could Kuan Peng be so stubborn? It actually still cared about helping Hao Tianwang. He destroyed the light pillar with great difficulty in order to attack Hao Tianwang's dignity and arrogance. If Kuan Peng kept carrying Sky City, wouldn't he have failed? Tang Zheng naturally couldn't watch this scene. His heart moved and he persuaded. Kuan Peng, don't you want to regain your lost memories? Kuan Peng replied stubbornly, I will go with you in the future to regain my memories. Damn it, what did Hao Tianwang and the others do to Kuan Peng? It's like brainwashing. It's actually so loyal to them. Tang Zheng cursed in his heart. He knew that a long night was fraught with problems, especially when the battle below was very fierce. If he didn't seize the time and Xiaobai couldn't hold Hao Tianwang, he and Xiaobai would be in danger. Tang Zheng hesitated and said, Then I'm sorry. Sumeru's world flashed, and a mysterious force tried to wrap around Kuan Peng. However, he failed because Kuan Peng also burst out a burst of energy and completely bounced off the attractive force, giving him a taste of his own medicine. This was not a joke. Kuan Peng actually offset the attractive force and made Sumeru's world ineffective. Tang Zheng was shocked. In this way, there was no way to take Kuan Peng away. After all, this huge monster was too big of a target, and it was impossible to take it away under the eyes of the enemy. Kuan Peng was stimulated by the attractive force of Sumeru's world and said angrily, What are you doing? Where are you going to take me? Tang Zheng was afraid that it would misunderstand and hurriedly explained, I want to take you to regain your memories. Kuan Peng said angrily, I have already told you that I have to carry Sky City first before I can regain my memories. Tang Zheng wanted to continue persuading, but he heard an angry shout from above. King Wuling led the Imperial Guards and rushed over to kill. It turned out that King Wuling realized that something was amiss when he heard that there was no movement for a long time, and that no enemy was attacking Sky City. Therefore, he led a group of Imperial Guards to investigate, and happened to see Tang Zheng. Especially when he saw Tang Zheng's hand on the Kuan Peng and seemed to be communicating with it, he was shocked and immediately realized the seriousness of the matter. Last time in the Suicide Valley, Tang Zheng did not pay too much attention to the Kuan Peng, but this time he did not rush to the Sky City, but instead communicated with the Kuan Peng using his divine sense. Others might not understand what this meant, but for King Wuling, it was as if a bolt of lightning flashed through his mind, and he immediately reacted. Did the enemy come for the Kuan Peng? After all, the Kuan Peng was the foundation of heavens beyond. In the vast outer sky, only Hao Tianwang and King Wuling knew the true importance of the Kuan Peng. The others only thought of it as a huge transportation tool. Did the enemy also know the importance of the Kuan Peng? Martial Spirit King was shocked by this thought that popped up in his mind. How could the enemy know such a confidential matter? It could not have been leaked by the father and son. King Wuling did not understand, but he knew that he had to stop Tang Zheng from communicating with the Kuan Peng. If the Kuan Peng leaked any secrets, it would be terrible. Stop him. Under the Martial Spirit King's order, the Imperial Guards charged towards Tang Zheng without any regard for their own safety. Tang Zheng glanced at them, and remained indifferent. Sumeru world flashed, and two figures flew out. Tang Zheng shouted, Stop them. The four symbols and Azura faced the Imperial Guards. Tang Zheng had to race against time to communicate with the Kuan Peng, so he could only let the others block the enemy first. The four symbols and the Azura were waiting for Tang Zheng's order, and they would charge into the large group of enemies without a care for their own safety. The Imperial Guards were numerous, numbering more than 100. They immediately surrounded the four symbols and Azura, but the two were not afraid at all. Instead, they looked at each other, as if they were secretly competing with each other. Kill! The Shura roared. Strands of Yin Qi began to spread out from his body like smoke. The Imperial Guards did not know how powerful the Yin Qi was. They only knew that there was a chill in their bones. They did not take it seriously at all. However, in the next second, they felt the Yin Qi enter their 8 extraordinary meridians and destroy their bodies. At a speed visible to the naked eye, their bodies started to rot. Ah! The screams pierced through the night sky. Only then did the companions realize that something was wrong. They scattered in all directions, but there was nothing they could do. They could only watch as their companions turned into a pool of thick water and fell from the sky. Don't let that damn thing come close. Someone pointed at it and screamed. Let's go together and kill them. King Wuling's pupils shrank. He had to turn the situation around as soon as possible. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The Imperial Guards did not dare to come close. They could only activate their treasures and attack the four symbols and Azura from afar. The four symbols was not afraid at all. They flew straight ahead. All kinds of treasures hit him, but only muffled sounds could be heard. They could not hurt him. He walked in front of an Imperial Guard. He reached out and grabbed. His palm grew in the wind, and quickly turned into a giant palm. With a clench of his 5 fingers, a few Imperial Guards were caught in his palm. Pa pa, pa. The sound of bones breaking rang out continuously. The Imperial Guards were turned into minced meat. Seeing that the Imperial Guards were avoiding the Yin Qi, Azura raised his Azura saber. The blade grew rapidly and turned into a giant saber, slashing down from the sky. Pu piu piu. A few Imperial Guards happened to be cut by the blade, and were cut in half. They died on the spot. The attacks of the four symbols and Azura were very fierce. It was especially shocking. Although King Wuling was an elite of the realm beyond heaven, he had lived like a prince for many years and rarely saw such a tragic situation. He could not help but be shocked. King Wuling knew that this could not go on. So he rushed out personally and shouted, "Die quickly!" Hua! An ice sword appeared in his hand. It fell from the sky and slashed at the Azura saber. Fierce chi flew everywhere, splitting the sky. The surrounding Imperial Guards could not dodge in time. They were affected by the chi and died in large numbers. King Wuling became angrier as he watched. The Imperial Guards had just appeared, and so many of them had died. It was really embarrassing. Without waiting for the ice sword's attack to be exhausted, his second round of attacks came unexpectedly. It swept over like a violent storm. Boom boom boom. In an instant, the Azura and King Wuling fought fiercely. The Azura saber and the ice sword went back and forth, fighting very happily. On the other hand, the four symbols rampaged among the Imperial Guards. In a few moves, they scattered the Imperial Guards. In an instant, the scene became chaotic. The Imperial Guards were not a match for the four symbols at all. They were scattered everywhere. Moreover, the four symbols did not use his full strength. That was because he had to be careful of Tang Zheng. He did not want the enemy to disturb Tang Zheng when he and the Azura were unprepared. No matter how tragic the situation was, Tang Zheng turned a deaf ear to it. It was as if he was not involved. He was thinking of ways to persuade the Kuan-Peng. However, the Kuan-Peng was stubborn and did not move. To read a novel, please visit Chapter 1698. The battle in mid-air had already attracted Hao Tianwang's attention. He was furious. The enemy was actually coming for the Kuan-Peng, which was far beyond his expectations. The enemy was putting himself in danger, and had such a clear goal. He must have a great plan. In particular, the Kuan-Peng was the foundation of the realm beyond heaven. It had unpredictable magical powers. If the enemy was using the Kuan-Peng to do something unfavorable to him, it would be bad news for him. No matter what, he could not let this happen. Therefore, Hao Tianwang's killing intent toward Xiao Bai became even stronger. He said with a murderous look, "No matter what your plan is, I want to tell you that it is useless. I will not let you succeed. Xiaobai looked up at Tang Zheng's situation and was extremely anxious. He also understood that the situation had reached the worst point. Although they had found the Kuan-peng, they were surrounded. In this way, it would be even more difficult for them to take the Kuan-peng away. However, it was obvious that Tang Zheng did not give up hope. Naturally, Xiaobai would not give up hope either. Xiaobai was not afraid of Hao Tianwang's threat at all. He retorted, "This is not up to you." Whoosh! A bloody light shot out from the bloodthirsty scepter, but it was immediately blocked by a thick ice wall. Whoosh! An ice sword pierced out from the ice wall and arrived in front of Xiaobai in the blink of an eye. Xiaobai hurriedly waved the bloodthirsty scepter. Boom! The two magic treasures collided. Two rays of light, one white and one red, gradually dyed the dark night sky and illuminated the surrounding ruins. You have made great progress. If I let you live, I'm afraid that one day in the future you will ruin my plans. Therefore you must die. Hao Tianwang roared. Xiaobai had changed a lot after meeting him twice. Hao Tianwang became very wary of him. As soon as his voice fell, Xiaobai felt the air around him turn cold. With a rumbling sound, flames rose from his body and quickly spread in all directions. However, these flames could not completely disperse the ice. The ice seemed to be endless. When he melted a part of it, it quickly condensed back into ice. Kill! Xiaobai let out a furious roar. Countless strands of blood shot out from the bloodthirsty scepter and flew towards Hao Tianwang. All of a sudden, tiny ice swords appeared in front of him without any warning and attacked the incoming bloodlines fiercely. The blood threads were completely severed. The huge ice sword pierced straight through, forcing the bloodthirsty scepter to retreat. In the end, Xiaobai's cultivation was inferior to Hao Tianwang's. It was already a miracle that he could last this long. In the end, he was still no match for Hao Tianwang's attacks. Hao Tianwang sneered. You can't hold on anymore? Your royal family is indeed weak. I am the ruler of this sky beyond heaven. The ice sword suddenly emitted a dazzling light, and a fierce aura swept across the sky. Boom! The ice sword suddenly grew larger, almost occupying half of the sky. The monstrous sword intent completely enveloped the bloodthirsty scepter, and Xiaobai. Puff! Xiaobai spat out a mouthful of blood. It was as if half of his strength had been sucked away. Like a cannonball, he flew backwards and rushed towards Sky City. Hao Tianwang took advantage of the situation and chased after him, stepping into the air. Tang Zheng saw Xiaobai's miserable state from afar. He sighed in his heart. After all, they were not as strong as Hao Tianwang. This was an insurmountable gap. What should I do? The Kuan-peng was stubborn and refused to leave. Should I just give up? If I miss this chance, I'm afraid I won't even be able to see the Kuan-peng again, let alone communicate with it. Just as he was hesitating, Xiaobai had already flown in front of him. Hao Tianwang followed closely behind, directly rushing towards Tang Zheng. When enemies meet, their eyes would turn red. Hao Tianwang had a deep impression of Tang Zheng. Immediately, a murderous aura swept across the sky. He roared, Tang Zheng, let's see how you can escape. Whoosh! The ice sword fiercely pierced over. The hidden mystic sword appeared out of nowhere and fiercely slashed out, facing Hao Tianwang's ice sword. Dang! 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 The two magic treasures kept hitting each other in the air. The sword chi was like a rainbow. Within dozens of meters, no one dared to get close, fearing that they would be caught in the crossfire. Tang Zheng's cultivation was not as good as Hao Tianwang's. He was also multitasking. How could he win? After a while there was a crisis. The hidden mystic sword could only block tiredly, and could not take the initiative to attack. Xiaobai stopped in front of Tang Zheng and anxiously asked, Master, how is it? Tang Zheng disappointedly said, As long as I touch the Kuan-peng's body, I can communicate with it. But the Kuan-peng has lost its memory. It doesn't remember the royal family. I persuaded it to leave with me and find its memory, but it didn't listen. Xiaobai angrily said, If it doesn't listen, then take it away. Tang Zheng bitterly smiled. It was easy to say, but how could it be so easy to do? Xiaobai also realized that his words were not reliable. He resentfully said, Then let me wake it up by scolding it. It actually forgot the royal family. Doesn't it know that it has been with the royal family for tens of thousands of years? After saying this, he put his hand on the Kuan Peng. Xiaobai was injured and stained with his own blood. After he put his hand on the Kuan Peng, a blood light immediately lit up. At the same time, the Kuan Peng's body also lit up. Ha! Tang Zheng opened his eyes wide in surprise. He had tried so hard to persuade the Kuan Peng for so long. Why didn't the Kuan Peng react? Xiaobai just put his hand on the Kuan Peng's body and it reacted. Tang Zheng stared at the ball of bloody light, deep in thought. Could it be because of the blood? No. Tang Zheng immediately denied it. It was definitely not someone's blood. It had to be the blood of the royal family. Then the Kuan Peng would react. The Kuan Peng and the royal family had been together for tens of thousands of years. There was probably a mysterious connection between the two. This was probably something that even Hao Tianwang and Xiaobai did not know. This time it was completely triggered by chance. If he had known this earlier, he would have asked Xiaobai to persuade the Kuan Peng, and he would have stopped Hao Tianwang. Then he would not have wasted so much time. Tang Zheng had no time to regret. He hurriedly reminded, Xiaobai, the Kuan Peng is reacting. Hurry up and communicate with it. Without Tang Zheng's reminder, Xiaobai had already reacted. That was because the Kuan Peng's voice also sounded in his mind. Who are you? I am your grandpa. Xiaobai answered angrily. However, the Kuan Peng's reaction was out of his expectation. The Kuan Peng became silent. Then, the light on the Kuan Peng's body started to spread rapidly in all directions with Xiaobai's hand as the origin. It was extremely fast. It seemed that the light was going to cover the Kuan Peng completely. Xiaobai also forgot to speak. He had realized something and looked at all this in a daze. Tang Zheng also looked up at the Kuan Peng. He did not know what the spreading light meant. However, he was looking forward to it. In the distance, Hao Tianwang was stunned when he saw this. He had studied the Kuan Peng for many years. He had not gained much and such a situation had never happened before. He did not know what it meant. However, he was sure of one thing. This was definitely not a situation that he wanted to see. Chapter 1699. Stop! Hao Tianwang roared. With a swoosh, the ice sword split into two, and then into tens of thousands, covering the sky and earth. With a terrifying sound of breaking through the air, they attacked Xiaobai at the same time. Xiaobai, don't worry about communicating. I'll block him for you. Tang Zheng gave up on communicating. His figure flashed and turned into a ray of light, facing Hao Tianwang. Whoosh! A black hole appeared in front of him, and the sky swallowing technique expanded to its maximum power. Sky swallowing. The black hole expanded rapidly as if it was really going to expand to the same size as the sky. Those ice swords had no way to pass through the black hole, and were completely sucked in. These ice swords were not the real bodies of magic treasures, but illusions. However, they were not any weaker than ordinary magic treasures. It was a pity that they encountered the sky swallowing technique. Now that they were in the imperial city, Hao Tianwang's territory, Tang Zheng was not afraid of hurting the innocent, so he dared to use the sky-swallowing technique so unscrupulously. This was Tang Zheng truly using the sky-swallowing realm to his heart's content. The power was as he had expected, abnormally terrifying. Hao Tianwang's mind actually trembled, as if it was going to be sucked into the black hole. He reached out his hand, and an ice sword struggled to escape the suction of the black hole, and flew back to his hand. He and the ice sword became one, occupying half of the sky. The sky was completely frozen, becoming a part of the ice sword. Hao Tianwang merged into it, and his body could not be seen at all. However, his voice rumbled like thunder. You can die proud. Ever since I mastered the divine technique, no one has been able to force me to use the man and sword as one. Tang Zheng sneered, and said, Die? Then you'll have to break my sky-swallowing technique first. Sky-swallowing technique? You really think you can swallow the sky? Hao Tianwang disagreed. The sky is full of me. I'll see how you swallow me. Aren't you afraid of biting your tongue? After a slight pause, Hao Tianwang finished preparing and roared, Kill! Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The sky full of ice swords flew towards the black hole. This was clearly more powerful than the previous ice swords. Unfortunately, the black hole took them all in without giving the ice swords a chance to escape. Not long after, all the ice swords that flew over disappeared. In the heaven realm, these ice swords turned into waves of energy. They were not weak at all. They silently merged into the tree of life. Tang Zheng was overjoyed. Hao Tianwang's attack was indeed extraordinary. The energy contained within it was enormous, and it had actually benefited him. However, Tang Zheng was not happy for too long. His heart suddenly sank, and he found some clues. Hao Tianwang's attacks were endless, as if there was no end to them, one round after another. As the saying goes, dripping water can penetrate a stone. With so many attacks coming one after another, as time passed, it was actually effective. The edge of the black hole trembled slightly. How could Tang Zheng not understand what was going on? His heartstrings trembled, and his face turned pale. Hao Tianwang's attack is actually so powerful that even the sky-devouring technique can't block it. Although he had completely comprehended the sky-devouring technique and reached the sky-devouring realm, there was a huge gap between his cultivation and Hao Tianwang's. The sky-devouring technique could restrain Hao Tianwang, but it might not be able to completely restrain him. This was because Hao Tianwang's continuous attacks were also a huge threat to the sky-devouring technique. This was how it worked. There was nothing in the world that could absolutely overwhelm everything. It was either the east wind that overwhelmed the west wind, or the west wind that overwhelmed the east wind. Hao Tianwang could barely resist the sky-devouring technique, but it was not so easy for other people and things. A huge black hole hung high in the sky. Once a huge suction force enveloped someone, that person would be sucked into it with a whoosh, turning into energy to replenish the heaven realm. The ruins in the imperial city also flew up quickly, covering the sky and the earth. There were ruins everywhere, but the black hole took them all in without being picky at all. Rumble. Suddenly, a series of strange loud sounds came from the ground. What's going on? Many people's hearts were thumping. They did not know what was going on, but the next scene made them tremble. The ground actually rose high, and pieces of soil and rocks flew up. Not long after, a huge pit appeared in the imperial city. All the soil and rocks were sucked into the black hole. Only then did everyone understand the terror of the sky-devouring technique. This black hole could devour everything. Not only people, but even the earth could be devoured. It seemed that the sky-devouring technique was not impossible. Hao Tianwang was also shocked by this scene. He had never seen such an evil divine ability. If the entire imperial city was swallowed into the black hole, it would definitely be a painful blow to him. He could not sit back and watch. Suddenly he glanced from the corner of his eye, and his eyelids twitched. He was secretly delighted as if he had discovered a new world. He laughed out loud and said, "So your sky-devouring technique is not invincible." He found the traces of trembling at the edge of the black hole. This was not there before. It was obvious that his attack had worked. Hao Tianwang seemed to have been injected with chicken blood. He used all his attacks, and half the sky turned into a huge ice sword. Whoosh! The huge sword flew toward the black hole. This huge sword was much bigger than the black hole, and Hao Tianwang was attached to it. He was bound to destroy the black hole with this attack. The overwhelming terror actually hit him in the face, and Tang Zheng's heartstrings kept trembling. He found that the trembling at the edge of the black hole was getting more and more intense. No matter how he activated the sky-devouring technique, he could not make up for it. Hao Tianwang is really too powerful. Perhaps the sky-devouring technique can only be a real threat to him after my cultivation increases greatly. Tang Zheng understood. He turned his head and looked at Xiao Bai and the Kuan-Peng. He found that the light had completely spread to the Kuan-Peng's body. Xiao Bai and the Kuan-Peng were motionless, as if they had lost consciousness. They were indifferent to the earth-shattering battle outside. They must have reached a critical moment. I have to hold on until the last moment. Tang Zheng gritted his teeth and did not retreat. He activated all his power and kept using the sky-devouring technique, pushing the power of the sky-devouring technique to the extreme. Boom! The The huge sword pierced the black hole. The black hole trembled violently, but the huge sword was also shattered and sucked into the black hole. However, the huge sword was too big. It could not be shattered in a short period of time. Both sides were fighting a war of attrition to see who would be able to hold on until the end. Pa! The edge of the black hole trembled a few times, and a gap appeared. The suction of the black hole decreased sharply. Tang Zheng tried to use his power to make up for it, but he found that it was a drop in the bucket. He had consumed too much power. Although the sky-devouring technique was powerful, it consumed a lot of power. It was commendable that he could only hold on for so long. There were more and more gaps in the black hole, and the huge sword was getting smaller and smaller. Almost everyone else was attracted by this scene. They had already hidden outside the range of the black hole's suction. They did not dare to take the risk. Even King Wuling did not dare to be so careless. At the same time, thousands of pairs of eyes inside and outside the imperial city were also watching this scene. They had never seen anyone who dared to fight against Hao Tian Wang, let alone be in a stalemate. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.